All right, good evening, folks. We're going to call the Harwich Select Board meeting for Monday, December 22nd, 2025 to order. We are going to enter into executive session, and then open meeting will resume no earlier than 6:15 p.m. Again, no earlier than 6:15 p.m.
Mr. Chair, I move we go into executive session for A, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Fire Chief David LeBlanc. B, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. HEA, Harwich Employees Association. MCOP, Massachusetts Coalition of Police Superiors. And C, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 38, 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. Assessors Map 82, Parcel R5.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And the chair's aye, 4-0. Again, we will resume no earlier than 6:15 p.m. Thank you. All right, folks, good evening. We're going to call the Select Board meeting back to order. The board met in executive session this evening, and happy to report that although previously agreed to, the board signed the agreement with the MCOP, Mass Coalition of Police Superiors, this evening. So again, appreciation to all those involved, especially Tony and the folks in the Superiors Union. So thank you for that. With that said, I would ask you to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jump right into staff comments and announcements, and I'll just state for the record that the board will not be meeting next week. The next board meeting of the next select board meeting will be on Monday, January 5, 2026. Any members here this evening from staff that would like to address the board? Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director, and I do know you have a packed agenda, so I will go quickly and just make sure that you know there is a spaghetti dinner January 8th at 5:30. At our last one, there were over 150 people, so it really is serving the community, and we invite you all to come. It's free.
Can't beat a pasta supper.
You sure can't.
Here we go.
We have brought back our Try It, You Might Like It series. We have arts and entertainment and health and fitness. So these are just free classes to see if it's something you might be interested in the month of January. I'm not going to go through them all because I've seen your agenda, and these will be posted downstairs. They're on our website, and as always in the Community Center newsletter. We are having a talent show, and I want to make sure that you could all get in on this on January 23rd at 6 p.m. And then we are going to redo the volunteer fair that we did last year. We had so many people asking about it. It's a great opportunity for people who want to get involved one time on a regular basis. If they want to see committee, we'll have as much information as we can, and we invite people on both sides. If you have something you need volunteers for, or if you would like to become a volunteer, that will be in the community center on January 29th from 3 until 6 p.m. And it is that time of year again. We will be doing our prom dress boutique. There's a lot of young people who can't afford some of the prom dresses. I don't know the last time you bought them, but they're very expensive. And most of the people just wear them once. So you can drop them off. We'll have them cleaned, and then we give them away to people who may need those. So that will be held on Saturday, January 31st. So I thank you, and I hope to see you at some of the events. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Jamie Goodwin, Harwich Channel Station Manager. I was here last week bragging about all the wonderful things my department was doing, and my station was down. Unfortunately, that outage affected Monomoy 22, the education channel, and our public access 9 and 26. Comcast was out multiple times, and I think we all can enjoy when Comcast shows up and they say, oh, this is not your problem, this is our problem. So that was a win for me. But we are back up and running as of Saturday. Big shout out to Justin Schauwacker, is the Comcast technician. He does all of the PEG stations across the Cape. He is the only PEG technician. So he unfortunately gave me his cell phone, so he will be haunted by me for many years to come. But I wanted to thank everybody that called me, texted me, and emailed me to tell me that the station was down. I'm at these meetings, I'm covering these meetings. I assure you I'm not re-watching them on Channel 8, so I need that. So if you see the station down or you think something's wrong, do not hesitate to call, text, email, or, walk right into my office. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Wise decision not to rewatch it.
Good evening, Emily Mitchell, Town Clerk. I will also do my best to keep my updates brief. But as we are fast approaching 2026, we are entering annual local census season and dog licensing season. I know the things folks look forward to the whole calendar year. But the annual census, for anyone who's not familiar, is a typically one-page document that lists all of the residents in your household. So we, the town clerk's office, mail this document to every household on or around January 1st of each calendar year. This is a requirement of state law. State law also requires that the residents return this document to our office. The ideal is within 10 days of receiving it. So the document includes every member of your household, both adults and children, has their names, date of birth, voter registration status, nationality, and occupation. What you want to do as the resident when you receive it is look through it. If anything needs to be changed or updated, you can do it just by writing on the form. So not complicated, just make your notes right on the form. If everything's correct, you don't need to add any notations. When you're sure that it is complete and accurate, you're going to sign and date the bottom and then return it to the town clerk's office. There's a return envelope in the kit that we mail to you, so you can send it back by mail, or you're welcome to drop it off in person either to the town clerk's office, or there is a secure blue drop box located outside of Town Hall by the primary building entrance. So we're looking forward to receiving those from folks. They're important for keeping an accurate list of residents and voters in the town. A lot of departments use them for grant applications or for planning and advertising programs. So it's an important document all around, and we want to make sure folks get that into us. And then for dog licensing, state law and our local bylaws require that all dogs aged 6 months or older get licensed in the town. We're on a calendar year cycle, so folks have the month of January to complete that process. So to come on in if you have a dog or multiple dogs by January 31st. We do ask that you bring in current rabies vaccination certificate with you. And if your dog is newly spayed or neutered, to bring in some kind of documentation that reflects that. Fee is $10 for spayed or neutered dogs and $20 per intact dogs. And then for any households that have 4 or more dogs, those folks do need to acquire a kennel license, and that process starts with the animal control officer. So we do have dedicated portions, both for the census and for dog licensing, on the town clerk webpage. So feel free to check that out for more information. And if folks have any questions, please don't hesitate to call, email, or stop on by. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other staff members? Seeing none, we'll move on to the weekly briefing. Mr. Schiavi.
Good evening. Just a couple of brief updates for the sewer extension project as part of Phase 3, 1 East and 2 West in East Harwich. There'll be no work on Thursday, December 25th or 26th. And the following week for New Year's, they're just taking New Year's Day off, so they'll be working the day after New Year's, which is Friday the 2nd. Work still continues, as I briefed last week, on the Route 39 section of Orleans Road down to Pleasant Bay Road, and the pump station there right at the triangle where it meets Church Street. And then over on 1 East, they're still working on Pleasant Bay Road and working on the Chestnut Lane pump station as well. So that is continuing. In terms of Phase 3A, in the packet now, we've developed a milestone chart. As you know, we need to have a construction contractor on contract by the end of June of 2026. So we've set a date about 6 weeks prior to that to have everything lined up, and then we've backed that timeline up. So still a lot of activity to go on, working with SRF and other folks to make sure we get permission to advertise, hopefully in January. And so I'll keep that updated as we move forward and each of those milestones becomes completed. So you'll start to see that in the package each week as well. So that's all I have.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Tony? Hearing none, public comments and announcements. Any members from the public wishing to address the board this evening?
John Chory, Gorham Road. Will we be allowed to ask questions of the Finance and Capital Committee during their presentation or after their presentation?
Would love for you to ask them questions during the presentation. Thank you. Any other members of the public? Hearing none, consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we, A, approve the resignation of David Nanali on the Board of Appeals effective immediately, and B, approve the Select Board meeting minutes from December 15th, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
The only discussion is, I would like to say a genuine thank you to David Nanali, who hung in there on the ZBA for the Pine Oaks for process. He didn't have to do it, but he did it. He hung in there, and he's a fantastic representative for our town and just a great volunteer all the way around. So thank you to him.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's unanimous. Move on to the joint meeting with the Select Board and the Town Administrative Screening Committee. I believe Jack Mon is in attendance tonight. Jack, if you want to come up to the table, you can. If I recall, Tony, go ahead.
You have minutes to approve?
Oh, I jumped right along, didn't I? Oh, no, he read them both, didn't he?
Did you read them both?
Yeah, he read 'em both.
Okay, my
Oh,
mistake.
yeah, no, that's
All right.
okay. You got me going.
That's all
So
right.
anyway, Jack, if you want to come up, please. And if I recall, I saw an email that it's not a posted meeting, so only Jack will be addressing us this evening, is that correct?
Yes.
So you can sit here or the podium, whichever you prefer. Good evening, and appreciate you coming in tonight.
Good evening, thank you. Jack Mon, Town Administrative Screening Committee Chair. If it please the board, I would read from the letter that was submitted to you. I think that'll cover all the sufficient facts that are probably necessary for everybody to consider. With your permission, I'll do that.
Please.
Okay, thank you. On September 25th, 2025, Grew White Consulting distributed the initial recruitment solicitation to over 300 prospective candidates. The consultant also posted recruitment solicitation to over 300, the consultant also posted advertisements for the position on the Massachusetts Municipal Association, International City County Management Association, and Women in Public Management job websites. The advertisements were also posted on Indeed, LinkedIn, and other publications with regional distribution. A second solicitation was sent out approximately 3 weeks later. The consultant made every known effort to inform potential candidates about the Harwich Town Administrator position. The committee was very pleased with the response, both in the number of and in the credentials of the pool of applicants. All serious candidates received a questionnaire, underwent preliminary screening, and were subject to some limited reference checks. All 3 final candidates have agreed to participate in this public interview process. In total, 34 applications were received. All 34 were reviewed. 13 of the 34 applications were selected for further consideration. These 13 include those who have served or are serving as town administrators, town managers, 2 chief financial officers, and 5 senior-level department heads, among others. The committee then selected 8 candidates to interview, one of whom withdrew from consideration after receiving a job offer in another community. We have submitted to the board the list of questions that each candidate was asked, and after careful consideration and deliberation, we recommend that the Select Board consider the following candidates as finalists. Jeffrey Gorman, who was the town administrator in Marion and a former career naval officer. James P. Kreidler, Jr., who is currently in the private sector in renewables and the former town administrator in Winchendon. And James P. McGrail, the town administrator in Middleborough and a former town administrator in Marion. The list of recommended finalists consists of solid, high-performing professionals. Each has experience as a manager and as a leader. Each is and has been a successful performer in their current community, and each is well regarded in the field. We believe the 3 finalists will provide the board with an outstanding group from which to choose. We feel that any one of the 3 will serve Harwich well. It is worth mentioning that the committee members chose the finalists unanimously. It has been a privilege to serve on the screening committee. It was a hard-working, cohesive, and collaborative group. I feel fortunate to have had the pleasure of working with dedicated and committed members like Karen Doucette, Sandra Hall, Chief Norman Clark, and Duncan Berry. I would like to extend our appreciation to Mr. Richard White of Grew White Consultants for his hard work, guidance, and patience. Thank you, Rick. And on behalf of the search committee, we wish you, the Select Board, the best of luck with the final phase of this search. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. Before you leave, any questions for Mr. Mon before he heads out?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Just a formal thank you to the search committee, if I may.
Please.
And I'm going to read from an email that we received from our consultant regarding the search committee. They have worked diligently and collaboratively. I have been impressed by their decency, hard work, and commitment to the town of Harwich. I'm not sure I have worked with a better group of folks. So from my standpoint, I want to say thank you to all of you who participated, and it seems like we've got off to a great start. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other comments?
No, just thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
I just want to say thank you to you and to the committee. Great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Jack, personally, thank you. I appreciate you stepping up, and to your committee members, also a great thank you, not only from this board, but from the town as a whole. So thanks for all the hard work you folks have done, and we hope to solidify all your efforts with the next town administrator in the coming weeks, sometime in January.
It's been a pleasure, and we wish you the best of luck moving forward.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Very much.
We will now move into a joint meeting with the Select Board, the Finance Committee, and the Capital Outlay Committee. Not a lot of seats. It looks like you pretty much have the front row, which is great. Tony, I don't know if you want to take lead on this, or if you want to let the
No,
committees?
I think Martha's going to take the lead.
Perfect.
And then obviously we'll both be available to answer questions on how it was developed and
Sounds great.
laid out.
Appreciate that. So Martha, we'll turn the floor over to you if you want
Okay,
to
so
introduce yourself.
I'm going to call
Sure.
to order the
Yep.
meeting of the Capital Outlay Committee on December 22nd at 6:31.
And I would call to order a meeting of the Finance Committee, I guess at 6:32. I do have at least one member remotely, so I'd like to do a roll call of the committee that's here. Let's start with the group that's physically here. Aye. Dana DeCosta.
Tina Gaines.
Tina Games.
Michelle Galucci.
And I think we have Scott Norum on, pardon? Oh, and Peter has joined us. And I think we have Scott Norum remotely.
Present.
So I would also like to introduce my team.
Please.
I'm Ann Clark Tucker,
Rich Larius.
Michelle Galucci.
Scott
Yes, present.
and Martha, and I'm Martha Donovan, Chair of the Capital Outlay Committee.
Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you. So I wanted to start, I know you have a long meeting, but I wanted to just start and say my thank yous to the people who have helped get us here. This has been 4 months of a lot of work. I first want to say thank you to Tony, because it has been an absolute pleasure working with Tony. He has been incredibly transparent. He's improved the reporting process, as you can see from the documents. And his willingness to take our suggestions, consider them, talk to his department heads, and come back and make changes where he thought appropriate happened within a week. He also, and this is something that I hope is a standard going forward, at least in my short tenure, I'd never seen the detail that the department heads put together and sent to the town administrator. That never came through to our group. And that was incredibly helpful for us to understand what they were trying to accomplish, the cost, the timing, the scope of the project. So I hope going forward, we do continue to get that detail. It's important. I want to thank, as I do every year, the department heads, incredibly knowledgeable, very generous with their time. And they let us ask all our stupid questions, so we appreciate them very much. I want to thank Judith Molstead, who prepared all the minutes. It would be impossible for us to be taking minutes, trying to listen to the projects, take the votes. She's incredibly helpful to us. I think the most important person in this process was Natasha Lyons. Natasha is excellent. I just can't say enough good things about her. Administratively, she kept us on track. She was 2 steps ahead of me every part of the way. We got our information early. She did everything we needed to do to keep going. So if I got to give her a rating this year, it would be a 5 out of 5. She was just excellent. And then last and never least, to my committee members, they are incredibly dedicated. They show up, they ask really good questions, and they participate. And we couldn't do it without all of them coming together. So thank you to everybody. I will say that we did vote on the capital plan the entire 5 years. It was a unanimous vote. We voted on the budget. Everything was unanimous except for one item, which was the planning department's project to update the zoning map. That was a 4-2 vote. The 2 members who voted against, I felt that it wasn't a compelling or necessary project, but the rest of us felt that it was. So I just give you those votes so you know where we came in on the plan. I'm just going to summarize sort of the process and the changes that you'll see in this year's plan versus last year's plan. I think if I were to characterize Tony's approach to this, it was, let's be realistic. So he very much looked at what was in the pipeline, which you all know is a lot. That's where we started as well. Before Tony even got here, we looked at what was kind of coming up. What's the capacity of each department to kind of get the backlog cleared up, but also to do any new projects that they put in the plan. And where it was appropriate, you will see that he closed out, or I'll say closed out some projects and moved that money to pay for some of the capital that we're going to spend this year. And I think we need to see more of that happen going forward, frankly, that we're sort of balancing. If something's sitting there for years and years and not getting done, why is it sitting there? We're just holding money out of, that we could spend in another more efficient way. One of the things that you'll see new in this plan is dredging. As you may know, the state is about to vote on eliminating dredging support to many of the Cape towns. So that is now in the capital plan at a spend rate of about $500,000 a year. So for 5 years, there's $2 million that we didn't have in the plan before. You will see a few, and they're not significant, but I bring it to your attention. I might say this a couple times, some unintended consequences related to the Green Communities Act. So where safety vehicles could be passed down to other departments in prior years, now they have to be traded in. So some of the departments had to ask for new vehicles because they don't have a source for a used vehicle. The schools, and I know I didn't expect Michael was gonna be here, but we got, when the Harwich Elementary School became 100% for the town of Harwich, we got a budget 2 years ago that came in probably February or March. It was sort of last minute. It went on the plan. We did sit with them. Last year, at the request of the prior town administrator, we didn't meet with them because nothing changed. I would say this year we had a really good, positive, constructive conversation. They agreed to our timing for submitting their capital request, and they used our format, which was really helpful. And I think we've gotten off on, I hope, a good foot, and we'll have a good process going forward with the school. We did review the district's budget. We didn't vote on it, though, because it's not in this capital plan. They will present it to you. The big expense this year, as you already know, because it's been on their plan, is the roof at the middle school, which will have it's going to cost somewhere between $8.5 and $12 million, with reimbursement of about 37%, which would mean, we'd get $3 to $4.5 million reduction in the cost of that. I guess one of the things I did note in looking at the district's budget is they have about maybe 24 projects over the next 10 years that don't qualify, let's say, for debt, but they come through the assessment, and as we all know, we pay 75 to 80% of that assessment, and they are about $300,000 to $500,000 a year. So it's a good chunk of capital that's coming through the assessment. More than I guess I thought, or more projects than I thought. It's, you know, and it's things that replacing carpets, new network switches. I mean, it's all the stuff that you have to do there, and they're really good about sort of prolonging the life of all of their assets as much as they can, and really just spending what they have to. I would say this year, the golf and the library projects, while they had no dollar change, they just got moved from facilities into their own department, so that's just a change that we see. And you will also note that there are no sewer costs included, and that kind of goes back to what's realistic, right? We have 2 big sewer projects on our plate right now. This the CWMP is being updated. We don't know what the outcome of that is going to be yet that I'm aware of. So it doesn't make sense right now to have another sewer project when we've got so much on our plate, right? And then there are some future items that are going to be considered. I didn't realize, again, that Michael was going to be here, and some sooner rather than later when it comes to the school. And he's going to bring forward the boilers in the elementary school. Do you want to participate in the new program for heat pumps? There are a lot of issues with that, or do you want to replace them with fossil fuel boilers? When you look at this plan, you will see that the boilers are not in the plan because the school didn't know how the select board would decide to go on that question. So he'll bring that forward. We didn't think as a committee it was our job to make that decision. It really is going to be up to you guys to make that decision. The other thing that he's going to bring forward, and I think I shared this with Pete, is the tennis courts. Chad is looking to get those updated, upgraded, and there's obviously a cost, again, that we pay 75 to 80% for. That's going to be your choice of how we move forward on that one, and I'll let them bring that forward. I think there are 2 things, I know at some point you're going to talk about the regional agreement, that just came up in Capitol that I would make you aware of. There currently are 3 definitions for Capitol. Chatham has a definition that's different than Harwich's definition, and the school has a definition. I don't know how the school came up with their definition in the sense of, was that something in the agreement? Was that something talked about with both groups? Was that just the school? But I know that there's been discussions about if we changed the agreement and if there were some other way that we could share capital rather than at that 75%, 25% rate. Those definitions would matter, and I think you would want to codify them in a new agreement. I just want to bring that to your attention. I think the other thing, and this has to do with the tennis courts that maybe is not clear in the agreement, or maybe you want to make clear in the agreement, but maybe you want to have a discussion about, is how do the properties that these schools sit on get used by the town that they're in, right? I know when we had the discussion about the tennis courts, somebody said, yeah, but when Harwich and Chatham had an elementary school together, Harwich paid for the fields to maintain the fields in the back of that school. So now we've got some pickleball courts over at the middle school. I don't know how it got there. I don't know what the process was when they were put in there. The pickleballers in Chatham actually paid to upgrade those. But who gets to use the facility when it comes to the sports areas, and how do they get paid for? I think that there may be, you could drive a truck through some of the language in the agreement about that, and I'll let you guys figure out how you want to move forward. I think the other thing that the select board should address at some point in the future is the Alborough House. As you know, Tony's moving everybody out of the Alborough House, and he doesn't feel like it's adequate office space. There is a project in 29 to do engineering for the Alborough House, and we all know engineering means we're going to look at, does it need a paint job? Does it need new windows? Does it need a new boiler? Does it need a new roof? Is there any structural? It's an old building, right? If we're going to ask the committee to review and taxpayers to pay for a building that we don't maybe have a use for yet, or maybe there is, I don't know. I think we should start to have discussions about what that building is going to be used for and what we're going to be, at some point in the future, willing to put into that building, right? Before we get to the point where somebody approves it and we're moving forward and somebody says, hey, how did that happen? So I will put that back onto your plate as something that maybe should have a conversation about. So in one of the schedules, and what I do every year is I look at how did the capital plan change from year over year. So this year's capital plan is for about $61 million. Last year, our capital plan was closer to $93 million, and most of that was the 3A sewering. So what changed this year is you drop off fiscal year '26 at what was $45 million. You add on a fiscal year 31 at about $7.5 million. That net change by itself is $37.5 million reduction in what the plan looked like last year to this year. Doesn't mean anything. You're just dropping off 1 year, adding another year. Where the changes happen are between fiscal year '27 and fiscal year '30. Those 4 years were the same on last year's plan as they were on this year's plan. The change in those numbers is $5.3 million, an increase of $5.3 million. I know people like to think that you just pick up the plan, you move it forward, you add a year, and you're done. And let me tell you, we spent 4 months on this, and that is not what happens. And as I always say, what you will see is, especially when you have new department heads, they're going to look at their capital plan differently, and that's exactly what happened this year. So we did have some deletions. We had about $550,000 that came off in that 4-year period. And 2 of those were related to the let's get realistic about what we have in the pipeline versus what we can accomplish. Those were both in IT. And remember, IT is a 1-person department. They're doing electronic records. So the vendor has come and taken 200 boxes, and they'll take 3 to 6 months to do those 200 boxes. This is a 10-year project. We just don't know what the burn rate is going to be, but they've also gotten some grant money. So between the grant money and what they've already been approved, they had more than enough money, so they agreed that they could give up what they had in the budget last year, which was $100,000. Same for the technology reinvestment. Sarah's done a great job bringing technology forward in the town, but she's got a big chunk of money, or a good chunk of money, to cover her for next year. So she was willing to give up $250,000 toward this year's, what would have been this year's allocation. So I just want to remind everybody, and I'll be here, when she comes back next year and she needs the money, we're going to give her the money, right? Because she was willing to give it up this year. In terms of the additions, there's a fire engine in 28 that wasn't in last year's plan, and that's partly because the state has come out and said that at 15 years of age, a fire engine needs to be in reserve. And it takes 4 years to get a fire engine. So the chief had to kind of look at, I'm going to have to put that in reserve sooner than I thought, and I'm going to have to order a new one. And so we back that up and we get into fiscal year 29 instead of being in like fiscal year 31. You're going to see the dredging in there. That's a new addition of $2 million, as I said. There are, in the harbor master is looking to replace the boats that he has today. He has 2 boats in the harbor. He would like to replace it with 1. He is partnering with the chief to do, the fire chief, to do water rescue training, and that he does not feel that the boats that he has in the harbor are safe enough to do that kind of work. He's also looking to replace a 1974 boat that's in Long Pond. So those are sort of the 2 boats that he wants to replace. He's also looking to start some engineering as it relates to the Allen Harbor boat ramp and the Shellfish Laboratory, which we have not yet been to the harbor to look at this. I think it's on our list of site visits, but in high tide, that Shellfish Laboratory can be underwater. So they need to move it and they need to rebuild it. So this would be just the engineering to start with. Conservation is looking for $300,000 to do some work on storm management around the Herring River. There's a lot going on around the Herring River. There's the Route 28 project that we're doing in construction and In conjunction with the state, there is the ramp that is going to be replaced, and so the conservation group needs to do something, just the topography of that area, they need to do something with storm runoff. They are looking for CPC money, but they have to come to us and at least have it in the capital plan. This may get paid out of CPC, we have to wait and see. And then we have the planning departments ask for rezoning of their map, which is $100,000. Now, in terms of what got changed, there's a lot of things that got changed this year. So the biggest one is the Saquatucket Harbor went from a replacement of the bulkhead to a repair. So the project moved in, but we also reduced the amount of the project by $7.4 million. That was a big reduction. And if we do this repair, we could get another 10 years on that bulkhead, which just totally makes sense. The Allen Harbor Jetty, the project got moved out, but the cost went up, not by 1.3 million. I would just say the school number it looks like it's down $1 million, but that's because it doesn't include the boiler, so I wouldn't count on that as some kind of a savings. The facilities workshop by the DPW also got moved out a year, but the price went up $3 million. That price keeps going up, unfortunately. The new well construction out in East Harwich for the wastewater department, that got moved out 2 years, but they added, I don't think they had engineering in there. So it's an additional cost of 1.1 million. They really need to do some site work before they can dig and connect a well. And then their facility that they're looking, I'm gonna call it a garage, but they have to move where they're parking the cars today because it's too close to the well, as I understand it. And they need to get these cars undercover because they're rusting out too soon. So they're looking to build, I'm calling it a garage, a cover for their vehicles. And that project also moved out 2 years, but the cost increased by 3.5 million. And I will say, when Noreen first put this in, I said to her, Noreen, if you look at that based on what the DPW is paying for their building, and I know it's not as complicated as the DPW building, $1.5 million just didn't seem enough. And she came to us this year and said, no, you're right, $1.5 million was not enough. So unfortunately, that is going up. So those are sort of the things we need to think about in the future, how the plan has changed year over year, what the thinking is. I think Tony had, hit it right on the head with sort of the what's realistic as the theme for this year. And I'll stop there and let people ask questions.
Any members of the board have any initial questions?
Just have one question. When the boilers will be decided upon for the elementary school, what year would they be considered being put in the plan? And if Mike's going to speak about it, I can.
Yeah,
hold
he
my
is going to
question.
speak in
Okay.
detail about it. I
I'll
won't
hold that.
take
Okay.
his thunder.
Maybe a question and a statement, if I could.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you both for being here, and both committees, and all the hard work. It's really something, and thank goodness we've got the all-stars here to bring this information to this board. Way back at the beginning when you started speaking, Martha, you mentioned the Green Communities Act, new vehicles, used vehicles. So do we have to do this and move, or could we just continue, if possible, to use the same current vehicles for another year or two?
No, we have to trade them in. That's the requirement.
That's a requirement,
Right.
the state, and that's.
Right, and I think, when you look at Michael's proposal for the boilers, it's those unintended consequences
Sure.
that we don't think about, It doesn't, I'm not making an opinion on the good or the bad of the green communities.
No,
but-
understood. And then, I know we don't have a sewer project in this capital plan. Mr. Chair, I would suggest getting GHD in here at some point to just give us an update on where Phase 4 sits. Not to say that I'm in a super hurry to begin working on Phase 4, but I haven't heard anything from GHD in a long time regarding upcoming phases. Maybe Town Administrator has some.
Well, I think some of that may come out in the CWMP update. But I think what we're trying to do is tie a few things together as it relates to sewer. One is to start to develop a long-range sewer financial plan, because we know the costs are in the hundreds of millions of dollars. But also as it relates to where we sit with our excluded debt and how that looks out over time, right? So if you remember from the presentation the finance director gave on the prior year financial review, we had a chart in there that showed, I believe it was in FY 31 or 32, the public safety buildings paid off, right? So we need to start bringing in more inputs into that conversation so that we're making, good, smart decisions about when it makes sense to bring on some of these bigger debt type things as it relates to the overall, debt schedule, right? So I think in terms of that, some of this is a little bit of an unfunded mandate in terms of what's being put down on the state in terms of the timing they want towns to try to accomplish all this work. It took us 100 years to get here, and they want us to fix it in like 25 years. And so I think we have to have a good conversation about how do we tie all these different pieces together and put it in an overview. Because remember, on that debt slide, what wasn't shown on there was debt that's been authorized but not borrowed yet. So we're still working to try to show those, gray shaded areas so that we can see what's still to come in terms of, what's been authorized, never mind new debt. So I think once we get all those together and we put in phase 4 and 5 and see where it makes sense along the continuum of time to potentially look at, bringing those, projects on. So I think with the CWMP update, we'll get GHD, and I'll talk to them the next time I have a meeting with them to see, where that is all coming in at, and I can report back to the board with some of that timeline for you.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excellent.
That's all for me.
Sorry, I really don't have any questions, but I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've done to put this together. It's probably been hours and hours, and by the looks of all that you've done, I want to say from my point of view, really appreciate what you've done, Martha. Thank you, and your committee.
The committee was great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Turn it over to the Finance Committee.
Thank you. I also would like to thank the committee and the town administration for the reports that they've done. We had earlier ones in the same format, and I think mentioned it at the time that it's really wonderful to get to this new format and all the components that go with it. It was good to just hear the comments about sewering, because that always stands out, and certainly to me and I would guess that some of the members of the committee anyway, finally, what listeners are interested in finally is being able to see what impacts over time are going to start coming through on their tax rates. And any time that there is a sense that things are not showing up, that they know in the back of their head are going to hit at some point, it becomes a question mark. Is there something something of consequence? And certainly, as Tony just said, that the whole sewer project is still of great consequence to the town and to the taxpayers finally, and how that starts. It was nice to, I guess I could say, nice to see zeros in the 5 years. A year or two ago, I said I was really superstitious about seeing the zeros dropping into the 5 years, but it was okay to see it now, as long as it's really being zeros for the right reasons, and that we're not going to suddenly, next year have, $50 million or something dropped into 2 years out. I particularly want to thank Martha on the presentation she just did, because it specifically covered a lot of things that might be questions about particular items in great detail, or enough detail to understand and put aside those questions. Previously it had been mentioned here, and mentioned to us at the Finance Committee previously, the importance of taking up the issue of old open projects and funding that has been previously approved. And I know we've seen before the size of that list at various times in the past, and how important it would be for the town to be able to get that cut down in as many places, certainly cut down in terms of any of the projects that can be concluded as no longer relevant and turned around and used. And I guess there's some in here, and it would certainly be, if there's more out there, it would certainly be important to everyone here that those get taken care of. I think at that point, I'm going to see whether we have questions from the other folks in the audience. Any members that have questions? We'll get to the remote people. I see Peter Hughes.
I guess I'll go to the podium.
Pardon?
I said, I guess I'll go to the podium.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Yeah, no running. Thank you. Good evening, Peter Hughes from the Finance Committee. The proposed building at the Water Department, I had previously had discussions, this goes back a year or so, with the previous superintendent. He had a great desire to bury all the utilities on site, especially electric utilities. When you tour that actual site and go to the individual well pump houses, it's an ancient system. And I don't know if that's included in here or not. I'd also suggest that, much like the DPW building, that in the year ahead of the actual construction, they put in some engineering money to actually figure out what that building's going to be and what it needs to be. That building at the moment, or those buildings at the moment, sit down in a real bowl. It's in a hole, and I don't know what floodplain issues might be involved there, but I think there'll be some engineering necessary to support that. And maybe it's included in the $5 million, don't know.
Do not know, and that is a good idea.
I don't know for this particular project, but you'll see we made changes to some of the ones that are more near-term. What I have found in my experience is if you go in and try to ask money for construction and you haven't spent, a little bit of money to come up with some of the engineering, renderings, rough construction costs, you're more likely than not going to miss the mark on the construction number because it's really not based on any real information. So you'll see on some of these projects, now typically for the bigger projects, you're looking at about 10% of the overall cost for engineering as a rough number. That's why for the DPW facility, you see about $1 million, I think it was, for doing the engineering for that. So for a $5 million, building, you're looking at about $500,000 for engineering. So we'll track that down and see whether they put that in their planning, and if they have, we may have an opportunity through the select board process to break that out, or next year's, capital plan can break it out. It's still a few years out into the, into the future, so.
Excellent.
Okay, Dana. Tina. Mark. Scott. Are you still there?
No question.
No questions.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, I guess you
I
nailed it,
shut
huh?
everybody up.
Right?
Yeah.
Any members from your
We're
committee?
good at that point.
Yeah, and does anyone in my committee want to?
Just one comment.
Oh, go ahead.
Rich Larios, Capital Outlay Committee. There's a lot of paperwork there and a tremendous amount of analysis this year. But I want to make a comment that two titles. One is the capital budget, which is the 27 numbers, and the plan is the entirety, okay? So that a lot of the analysis, in-depth analysis, was on the budget side, because that's going to affect us this year. And then the out years are the explanation that Martha gave for planning purposes. So a lot of paperwork there, a lot of analysis, a lot of definition of how it's going to be funded, and the definition of why it's going to be funded, whether it's technology or whatever. That's it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Rich. Do you have anything, John? Oh, I know John Shorey wants to ask a question.
Been looking forward to John's comments. Please. That's said with sincerity.
Good evening, and thank you, the chair.
Thank you.
Just a couple questions. And it's, the first comment is to echo Martha's and Bob's comments on the whole budget process, capital outlay budget process, not the operating budget, but the capital outlay process. The amount of detail was tremendous, the most I've seen in many years. And and very straightforward, too. I mean, it wasn't very complicated to look at it and understand it, interpret it, and I really appreciate, you know, the hard work that went into that. I'd like to start with the Select Board's budget message that went out earlier this year. And it's just a couple comments, just to see what the answers are and how it fits into the capital project. The first one, and Martha referenced this in her discussion on some of the town building inventory. The budget message from the Select Board said, town building inventory carries structure ranging from 20 to 40 years old, along with miles of deficit roadways. The fact remains, careful planning to invest wisely to extend the useful lives. I would probably add on, some of these buildings we have are hundreds of years old. And we've seen it with some of the buildings that we're keep putting money into year after year after year, to all good results. The South Harwich Meeting House is a good example. Brooks Academy, I know, is in the works right now with funding that's going to be spent. Hopefully we have enough this go around. 204 Sisson Cultural Center. I'd like to suggest, to Martha's point, maybe we get rid of some of these buildings. She mentioned the Alborough House.
Oh, my God.
He's paraphrasing.
You know, when she
I won't be
brought
able to
that
show
up,
my face in town. Come on, guys.
It's true. I mean, do we really need these buildings? It's my thought. The Alborough House, I know we're moving people out. That's one building. I don't know what the building is kind of diagonally across from Brooks Academy. Is that the junior theater?
The old rec.
Junior
Rec
theater.
building.
That's another old building. I recently went by that the other day, and I saw a bunch of new stairs going in, fences, and I guess it was needed for safety reasons. What's the long-term plan on that building? That's an old building. And there's other buildings around town. So it just, in your letter, you want to go through that and examine them. You mentioned rather than chasing expansion of new capital problems or personnel additions. One other line item was here was all departments must present a utilized level service approach until such time that new labor contracts are ratified and anticipated revenues have been defined. At what stage, you don't have to tell me exactly, but are those union contracts and non-union contracts, are they all finished, or are you still in negotiations? Because that will have effect, obviously, on the operating budget.
At this point, 7 out of the 8 have been ratified, and we have 1 outstanding. And money has been appropriated in this fiscal year budget and will be for 27 for non-union staff as well.
Okay, because that's, and I'm sure to have the detail, hopefully, Tony, before you leave, you'll have an operating budget detail, like the capital.
Even better.
Even better, okay. The last one relates to capital expenditures. Decisions regarding capital expenditures will not be made until free cash has been certified and a plan for use of that free cash has been presented to the board. Has free cash been certified, and if so, what's the amount?
It's a secret. I just got it today.
Okay, well,
Can't wait till I, no.
Well, you have it, you have it.
I have it. You're going to hear about it in about 10 minutes.
Okay, and I saw one of your sheets was
Yes, sir, we have it.
the funding plan. It detailed the capital, the free cash in there, which was beautiful again. One of the line items in the capital plan was in '26, we spent or approved $770,000 for a design of the bulkhead at Saquatucket. Now that we're rethinking the bulkhead project from a $10 million project to a $2.5 million project, do we need all that $770,000? That's just a thought. You don't have to answer that now.
Oh, we can. Yeah, so the answer to that is, yes, there will be a savings, and the plan would be that we would bring an article to town meeting to repurpose the remainder of that towards construction, to offset the 2 million or 2.5 million. So yes, John, we'll take advantage of any savings there to help with the construction piece.
And in the 5-year capital plan from '27 to FY '31, I saw an increase of close to $13 million. I've heard a lot of different numbers moved around, but the actual increase for those 5 years is $13 million. I did see it on one sheet that was, I couldn't hardly read the sheet, but you mentioned it's about $5 million, but it's actually $12 million when you do 27 to 31. So-
Well, we're not counting 31 because that's a whole new year. Like, we didn't
Right.
have that last year. So I just looked at the numbers we had that were the same in both plans, 27 to 30. That was 5.3 million.
Yeah.
And then you add the 7 million, that's
Right.
31. But you also took off 45 million. So
So it's 12, it's the.
I was
it's
just,
the-
I was just doing the change in those 4 years that were the same on both plans.
But the plan you're going to present to the town is a $13 million increase for 5 years.
No, it actually, for 5 years, it's like a $32 million decrease if you're actually comparing.
Well, you can't use 44 million as in that number. You got to look at the 5 years from 27 to 31.
But we didn't have 31 in last year's
No, but you're having
plan.
it this year, though.
Right, but that's a whole
And
new
that's what you're
year.
asking the town to approve.
I-
Anyway.
I do my math differently, I guess, so
Well, when I
I'll
go to
leave it
town
there.
meeting, when I go to town meeting, I'm going to see a 5-year plan that's asking for $13 million more than a 26 plan. That's all I'm saying. Okay, and that's it. I do agree with Bob on the zeros. Except I'd like to see the years filled in. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make a point of clarification.
Please.
To the previous speaker. To the statement that the Harwich Junior Theater building needs to be looked at, that is owned by the Affordable Housing Trust. So that is not a town asset. Just want to make sure the public understands that. That is owned by the Harwich Affordable Housing Trust. Thank you.
So Pete, maybe I could put one other thing on, thinking about the future with capital. Tony discussed with the committee a process that he had done in Bourne where they had a consultant come in and look at all of the buildings that the town owned and assess sort of in detail what needed to be done so that you could get a good look at what the future looked like. That might be a project that we want to think about undertaking because we do have some old buildings and we might want to put it on the list and somehow, whether it gets in a budget. Yeah, I don't think it's a capital item, but we might want to bring a consultant in to kind of give us some help with those buildings.
Yeah, we had a similar conversation, if not including that, but regarding our roadways as well, too.
Right.
To really identify not just traffic count or sightlines, but how do we actually make improvements to them?
Right, and when you're trying to figure out like how the debt issue, all of that stuff is important to sort of looking at how we're spending our money and what we have money for and how we prioritize it.
Right. Want to comment on that?
No, that was the facilities, master plan that would actually take every building and grade them and all the different components and help to develop that, not just a 5-year plan, but it could be 10, 15, or 20. So.
Right. Exactly. Agreed. Any other comments from this board? Anything else you folks want to?
I don't think so. Through the chair. Just one additional thing, because it wasn't really the role of the capital committee, but when I present the budget here the second week of January, the funding plan page that goes with this will be part of that presentation, and there's a column there for the board to assess the cost of each of the projects in FY27, which is the capital budget that needs to get funded by town meeting, and we'll have an opportunity to discuss at least my draft plan of where all these projects for FY27 fit in the various, I'll call categories of funding options, from free cash to excluded debt to retained earnings in the enterprise fund, and as well as repurposing some capital money from prior projects to help fund current projects.
Yeah, and I did start to look through that over the weekend.
So that'll be the
but just
board's
not enough time in the day.
decision. Yep.
But yes, it's good information.
Great. Thank you.
Please.
Again, Rich Larios, Capital Outlay Committee and former Finance Committee. For 15 or 18 years I've been doing this. The plan that we've submitted to you and to go to town meeting is still subject to change through 26 to town meeting. We've had instances that on the night of town meeting, and I think Peter would agree with me and Dana, we've had changes to the capital plan. So I want the taxpayers to know that we stay on this. We don't go on a hiatus. We still maintain the relationship between Finance Committee and the Capital Outlay Committee to have a finished product for town meeting.
Thanks, Richard. Happy to see that the 20 years hasn't beaten you up too badly, so.
I'm limiting now.
Thank you. Any other members of the public want to opine? All right, hearing none. Appreciate your time this
Can I
evening.
get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Ann?
Second.
Can I get a roll call? Ann?
Ann Tucker, aye.
Rich?
Rich Larry.
Michelle?
Michelle Luciano.
Scott?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. We're adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Same thing, yes. Can I get a motion to adjourn the finance committee? Second? Second? And a roll call to support that.
Aye. Dana DeCosta.
Tina Gaines, aye.
Michelle Luciano.
Scott?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So we are adjourned also.
Excellent. Thanks again, folks. Appreciate your time this evening. Yeah, very nice. That is really nice.
Can't have it all.
That's what I thought.
It's a lot of work.
And we'll move right along to the 2026 annual town meeting update. Mr. Schiavi, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So just a couple updates on the town meeting timeline. Thought Mr. Chori was going to stay around for the great announcement about free cash, but he left.
He's going to be sorry.
So I had previously told the board our information from DOR was that we probably weren't going to get our free cash certified until sometime in January, having us in sort of the third tier, and DOR really focusing right now on towns that are doing their tax recap process. But as all luck would have, we got our free cash certified today. So I want to report our free cash for FY '26, which is based on FY '25's actuals, was $3,995,105, so just under $4 million. I think, you know, generally speaking, that's probably more of a normal number. I know in the past, the town has seen numbers as high as 7 million, which is, I think, really an outlier, and I think we're going to start to see more normalized numbers related to our free cash. So as we get ready to present the budget in January, in addition to free cash used for capital, we'll also be looking at, you know, free cash for various items that go on the warrant for town meeting, and so I'll talk about those in January when I present the budget. We also got the retained, the retained earnings for both the Water Enterprise Fund and the Sewer Enterprise Fund. And so those are in the documents I sent to you today. Interestingly, on the Sewer Enterprise Fund, they were reporting a negative, so we need to dive into that a little bit. It was like $70,000. Remember that enterprise fund's very young, but we need to just, you know, track that to ground. So I've let the Water Department and Sewer Department and the chair of the Water and Sewer, Water and Wastewater Commissioners know about that, and they have the documents as well. So that's good news to get that this a little bit earlier than what we thought. The only other change I wanted to mention is the presentation of the budget and capital plan and capital budget to the Select Board will now be on January the 12th. I think when I originally set up this timeline, I was a little bit more aggressive on myself, not realizing the impact of these next 2 weeks with the holidays and such, and so we need a little bit more time. Again, it's more about accuracy and fidelity in the budget that we're going to present to the board than it is about just picking a date and damn the torpedoes, a full speed ahead kind of mentality, which I've used before, but this is probably not one of those cases. So January 12th, which is still well over a month ahead of time that it's required, and still ahead of time for the board to forward the budget and capital plan to the Finance Committee no later than mid-December, I believe it is, or mid-February, excuse me. So
Mr.
that's all I
Chair,
have.
I move that we do not tell John Chory the
Right.
free cash number.
Right.
He left the room and now he came back.
That's it, you have to wait.
3.995 million.
In our defense, the rest of us didn't know either. Yeah, we were trying.
You can catch it on the replay.
You're welcome.
Any comments or questions for Mr. Schiavi? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business, and we'll begin with the herring update presentation from our Natural Resource Director, Stephanie. Welcome.
Give me 1 second to load. We got 5 presentations tonight, so I gotta make sure I get the right one.
While we get that going, I'm Stephanie Ridenauer, Director of Natural Resources for the town of Harwich. Do I point? Oh. Okay, we're rolling. So I know it might seem like a strange time of year to do a herring update, 'cause usually when we're talking about herring and we're excited about herring, for me that's all year, but for most of us, that would be, it is. I could talk about herring all night. I won't, we have a packed agenda.
Oh, please, no, we got all.
I think it's the most exciting thing tonight. But again, usually we're talking about it in the spring when the adults are running upstream, but there is a fair amount of management that does occur year-round, and we have some management challenges and adjust our management accordingly. So I'm actually still doing management right now, even though it's the week of Christmas. So just so we're all on the same page, again, the adults are going upstream. We have a little graphic of their life cycle going upstream in the spring. It only takes a few days once they spawn for the eggs to actually hatch, and then those little juveniles, the fry or the young of year, spend weeks to months in the freshwater ponds. The adults go back out to the ocean, and then the younger fish typically go out end of summer into the fall, but we're seeing them go out in December with the drought conditions I'll get into a little bit later. If you're not familiar with Harwich's spawning habitat, we have one of the longest and most productive runs in Massachusetts. There are about 100 individual runs in Massachusetts. About half of those are on the Cape, so about 50, and then I think about 40 of those are active herring runs. So a lot of runs in the state, and we're proud to have the longest, one of the longest and most productive. And that covers about over 1,100 acres. They're run from Nantucket Sound up to Hinckley's Pond. I know it might be a little small on the screen there, but to the first major pond there, past Reservoir, is about 7 miles. So they have a long way to go. And we have a lot of places where we're looking for obstructions or clearing obstructions and debris. There's been a long history of management of this fishery. It's a huge part of, culture and heritage on Cape Cod, and including Harwich. On the bottom right there is just a small acknowledgement that we do have a sustainable fishery management plan. I'm referencing that just because I know there have been a number of questions and interest from the public and from the town for whether or not there could be a fishery, since we have that plan and we could have one. I won't be taking questions or commenting on that tonight. This is just meant to be an educational presentation for kind of what the department's been up to and what changes are going on with the herring run. Also out of respect for open meeting law, Emily, that's not what's on the agenda, is to discuss a fishery, so won't be getting into discussion of that, but acknowledging that it's there and just being respectful of time as well for the select board. So we have I started in June with the town, and we've been fortunate to have fantastic collaboration. So also wanted the select board to know that we've had some really wonderful partners. Thank you, Brad, with Division of Marine Fisheries. So Brad Chase and his Division of Marine Fisheries Fishway team have been really instrumental in getting us to where we should be for some of our management measures. The Harwich Conservation Trust and their staff and volunteers Association to Preserve Cape Cod, and both of those entities are also involved in the herring count, so the volunteer herring counts are managed through HCT, and then APCC does the herring dashboard for the Cape. So when all the counts get sent in, they have a dashboard for that if anybody is interested. And we also have a lot of these links on our website, so like I said, I could talk about fish all night, but I know I shouldn't. So if you're looking for more information, you can find some of their presentations and resources on the Natural Resources webpage on the town website, as well as my contact information if anybody has questions, concerns. Sometimes they're about pond levels, so the Harwich Ponds Coalition has also been a wonderful partner this year and even helped recruit some volunteers, as well as the AmeriCorps Cape Cod and the Conservation Department. And I know it might be a little difficult to see on that screen, but we've had, those are just some examples of the collaboration. We have one of our AmeriCorps members, and we have, top left, one of our bigger volunteer days. And when I say we've had great collaboration, it's not anything glamorous. It's shoveling sand. So that particular day, we had about a dozen volunteers just shoveling sand for true straight hours. So we'd love for you to sign up and volunteer, but just know what you're signing up for. But I mean, cumulatively, that's huge. I'm a one-person department, which is a little bit unusual for a town the size of Harwich to have a one-person natural resources department. So we have to be resourceful, and I'd say, I mean, easily over 50 volunteer hours. If you count the hours for Brad and his team from DMF, well over 50 hours contributed. That's not, costing any money to the town. And part of that is, DMF does a lot with the counts. So they have an electronic counter that's pictured there at the bottom, and they manage that. They actually have their staff go and do a lot of checks. They install it and remove it. So that's a great resource, and there are only a few of those on the Cape. So that's also where we've been able to source a lot of our more accurate numbers, is when we have the electronic counters. It's great that we have our volunteer counters, but we don't count at night, count during daylight hours. So that really is able to capture some more accurate data, and you can see some of those peaks there. So I said it's one of the longest and most productive runs, Herring River, and it really stands out that we've had in the last just over a decade, 2 years in 2014 and 2019, there are over 1 million fish passing through that run, which is very impressive. Other towns, I think, would be very jealous of those numbers. Anybody like me that's a fish nerd is very impressed by that. This year's count was a little bit lower, so about 280,000, which might sound concerning if you're comparing it to one of those banner years. Harwich is very impressive, over 1 million, but it really is in line. A few years ago, 2022, we had a pretty similar count, and then the next couple years it went back up to over 500,000, consecutively. So we do have fluctuations, but if anyone has questions, again, you can contact the department about specific questions or anything like that. And then the main reason I wanted you all to be updated on the projects that have been going on. So with these wonderful collaborations and with the access to DMF's Fishway team, Brad and his team, we've been able to accomplish a lot in my short, about, I think across 6 months now. So we've been able to accomplish a lot. And some of those things were really needed to get done. So this is all funded by DMF, so the material, not a lot of materials, but again, not at a cost to the town. It was their Fishway team, myself, that completed the replacement of the boards in the sluiceway, the side sluice at Bell's Neck at the West Reservoir, doing cement repairs in Johnson's Flume, so that's top left there. Some minor cement repairs, taking out the photo all the way to the right there from November is taking out one of the concrete slabs, replacing with boards, that type of work, and then the graphic on the right that has some before and afters is actually at Hinckley's Pond. So it's all the boards in the entire fishway, so both sides of that fishway. And then if you think back to our map a few slides ago, that's a really significant point in the herring run. That's kind of their first major pond after West Reservoir. And then from Hinckley's, we split up into Long Pond, or from Hinckley's up into Seymour. So it's really important that we have proper water retention as well. It's something that is important for our management, not just to manage for fish passage, but part of the fish passage is that we have proper water levels. So, well, we do get some calls about how much beach you may or may not have in front of your pond front house. We can't manage according to how much beach there is, but the water level genuinely, as much as I joke about that, is important. We need enough water retained this time of year in order to have a flow that fish are able to pass upstream in the spring. So if you let too much water out, you won't, basically fish won't be able to get up. And then again, summer into the fall, you want enough water for fish to go out. So we've had, and everybody is familiar with our drought conditions, and we've had different water control measures. So for the ponds, when we do have drought conditions, it's changed our management. And thank you to all the wonderful residents in that area, especially around Hinckley's Pond, that have asked questions and been really supportive of our adapting management measures. So for Hinckley's Pond, one of the changes has been that we're putting in and removing boards actively as a department, as I say department, me. But we are putting in and removing boards. So instead of just having flow there, the reason for that being that we need enough water, as I explained, to let fish up or down stream. So it might look a little different. If anybody has questions or concerns about that, or just wants to have a better understanding of the management, I do get those questions from residents, and I very much appreciate them. It gets me a chance to talk more about fish. But it is, sometimes when you walk by, usually people are concerned is, whether the juveniles can actually get out or not, and if they see them schooling. So if anybody's concerned about that, just know I'm checking on them. I'm watching the babies, letting them out on time. And with the pond levels, there are other environmental and, fish life cycle concerns where if they're trapped in those ponds, the channels between Hinckley's and Long and Hinckley's and Seymour were actually dry or obstructed for most of the summer. So we saw the pond levels, this water gauge there. We installed that too. Thanks, Brad. So that is now a permanent gauge there that's mounted to the cement wall as opposed to being in the sand. But the water level for that gauge, 1.4, and it went all the way up to about 2. Now we're well above 2, so we're in great shape for the spring. But there was no water passing between those ponds. So and it's just how it was. We just drought conditions. There's not really anything we can do about it. We have to do something about it when it comes time for fish passage legally as a town. So we're being mindful of that. But thanks to all the residents for being very patient with their low water levels. And just a note for management, with that, it becomes more complex. It does require a bit more staff time. So with a department that's already a bit understaffed for the scope of work that natural resources requires, it is a bit of a drain when more active management is required. It does take more time, it takes more volunteers, it takes more time to coordinate volunteers. We're thankful to have them, but it is a bit of work. The actual work itself, here's a little example of what it looked like October, November, and then later in November with some flow established. So that is the channel between Long and Hinckley's was dry, and then once water flows through, we actually have to go through with pitchforks and rakes and get some of the leaves out. But you can imagine with the fish leaving later and later, the more leaves there are that accumulate. So we end up with things that wouldn't really be a problem if they're going out in September, when I ask them to. But the channel is just not open, so it creates more work, and that's where it's not just that the management is more complex and knowing exactly when, based on rain and pond level and fish behavior, when to pull a board or put it back, but also just the environmental conditions that also shape our schedule and our work. And then there's just an example of one of the types of blockages that we have, because I've had some folks ask if they really will die in the leaves, and they will, which probably sounds kind of funky because they've been around for a long time, but it does happen. So that's just an example of what it looks like kind of before and after a pretty decent sized blockage that's downstream from Hinckley's Pond, kind of around the neighborhoods there. And if anybody wants to see videos, I didn't want to include a 2-minute video, But if anybody would like to see videos or anything like that at any point, please let me know. This is just some screenshots from one. This is a custom aluminum little fishway that you see in the top left that was completely dry in September when I was there with Brad from DMF. And then once we had some rain, the pond levels came up, we were able to pull boards to remove the fishway that we use in the spring to pull boards. And that is actually, you can see the dark spot there. It's basically a bait ball of juvenile fish that as soon as you pull the boards, schools up and you can see in real time go out, which I think is a rewarding part of the work. Ongoing projects. So I know we just had, fittingly, our capital and budget talk. So we do have some projects ongoing. So we have the 124 culvert is being replaced. So that is just the fishway that I just showed a picture of. That is kind of just beyond that. That goes under 124 in the channel from Long Pond to Hinckley's. We have a lot of water quality improvement work ongoing with the town. So, and then we have some non-town projects. So Harwich Conservation Trust, their eco restoration, so that, you know, the Cold Brook area, we may see some herring coming up through there at some point, hopefully. And then with their Hinckley's headwaters, hopefully that, you know, positively contributes to our water quality there. For the town, conservation, natural resources, we're applying for funding for diagnostic assessments for Hinckley's Pond and for West Reservoir, in hopes to take management measures following the diagnostic assessments to improve water quality there. And we'll continue our adaptive management. We have some educational programs that we're working on. So we do a lot with the Shellfish Lab in education, both with the schools and with preschoolers with different age groups. So kind of following suit and doing a similar thing with herring. So if there are any teachers, anybody that knows a teacher, they're welcome to get in touch, because we do have some activities for different age levels that would be great for herring. That's all.
Good job.
Any
Questions?
questions from the board?
Just one quick question, if I may.
You may.
Is AmeriCorps still available for you for help?
Yes, I filled out the application as soon as I got it this morning. I was hoping I was the first one to submit because we are restricted in the spring. So we had for the sort of the main work day that we had this fall with HCT, we did have the individual members that have their IPs, their individual placements with HCT and with conservation. What we would typically do as a department, when we typically utilize an AmeriCorps group service day or small service day, would be in the spring. So we try to time it. Usually it's in March. We want it just after the brunt of kind of the winter storms, because that's where a lot of your debris comes from. But you really need it before the herring would come at earliest, so usually in March. So cross your fingers. Wish me to get an AmeriCorps group service day in March, because that's what I asked for this morning.
Stephanie, you always, every time I see your name on the agenda, I can't help but smile. I look forward to seeing you here. You're a true professional. Harwich is lucky to have you. You make talking fish fun and exciting.
Oh, thanks.
I'll also say that in all seriousness, what you do is wildly important. Thank you to Brad in the back there for what you do as well for our town. Thank you for your presentation and your consistent energy. And thanks again.
Thank you.
That's all, Mr. Chair, for me.
Thank you.
Just thank you very much. What a wonderful presentation. It was great. And thank you for all that you do.
Volunteers need their own waiters?
Depends what shoe size they are.
Fair enough. Maybe put that on your website?
Yes.
What's the remediation plan if the levels don't rise someday?
So one of I didn't get into all of my nitty gritty because, you know, not everybody's a fish nerd. I mean, one of the things you have to consider is how far upstream do they get. So they'll go to their natal pond. So another area that, I mean, it's on our map, but you know, Cahoon Road is, right? We have, Harwich has a couple different beaches on Long Pond. So if you're looking out, you know, you're looking out from Cahoon, there's a very small pond on your right there. And we actually do have to quite frequently reestablish the connection between Long Pond and that very small pond. And so you do that enough times, and it's enough work that you kind of have to ask whether you need to continue that work and how important is it for them to get up, because Long Pond's the biggest ponds on the Cape. I mean, if they travel 7 miles from Nantucket Sound to Hinckley's, get through the Hinckley's Fishway, and then get from Hinckley's to Long, they've come pretty far. So that's something that Brad and I have discussed, to not reopen that, because basically what happens in the situation that we're in now in December is that I'm going to check that in December, which is kind of unheard of. And we have fish go out. Even last year, Brad had fish go out first week of December, which is unusual, but it's getting later and later. And it's not necessarily reasonable for that location to be continuing to reopen it to let fish out. Because if you let fish up, you have to let them out. You have to let the adults out, and then you have to let the juveniles out later. So for that, my plan is to let that close, and so fish won't be able to get up that far, and then we don't have to worry about letting them out. So each pond, each fishway, each channel connection, Princess Creek, Cahoon Canal, are all evaluated on their own basis. Each location has a specific operation and maintenance plan, an O&M plan. Some have an affiliated stream maintenance plan, and those are very location, very site specific. So those are site specific. So really, it would be evaluated on a site by site basis. I mean, some of those, like Coon Canal, is a man-made canal. So taking into consideration what's the history of it, how long fish been going up there, and is it going to be a culvert or something? If it's a culvert replacement, then that's kind of an easy answer. Yes, we have to do that, especially if it's a town road. We have some more that are a little bit more complex, where it's a private road and there's a culvert. So you're talking about a private property owner having the obligation. It just gets a little more complex. Mostly it's been shoveling. It's like at Long Pond, Brad and I go with our shovels. It's not a very complex thing in terms of management, but it's a consideration for staff time. Sorry, I know that's not I don't know if that's a great answer, but it's just so site specific. And I think the DMF Fishway team has just been fantastic in innovating something that is site specific. So like that, we have a really big problem, as you could tell by my hours of volunteer shoveling at Long Pond with the sand. So that fishway is that a one of a kind, Brad? It's the only one in Massachusetts. I mean, that's designed specifically for that site. And you get low water levels, you get a lot of sand buildup. So sometimes there is something that may be able to be engineered that is site specific to help alleviate some of those shoaling issues and to assist with fish passage without getting into some sort of multi-million-dollar project to replace a giant concrete fishway, because sometimes it doesn't need to be that complex. Like we might complain about shoveling, but we really don't mind. We like the fish a lot, so sometimes it's shoveling, sometimes it's some fishway like that where we can, I don't engineer, where Brad and his team, can engineer something to go around it. So we'll just keep addressing the challenges as they're presented.
Excellent.
And it really is, the main thing is it's a groundwater issue, so I can't recall if I mentioned that, but when we're talking about low water levels, the reason for that is low groundwater. So pray for rain. Snow, snow is helpful, like when you have snow melt in the spring, so.
Let's not encourage snow.
Yeah.
Rain is fine.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Anything else? No, excellent. Appreciate your time and presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steph.
Thanks. Let's see a tuna sandwich on my lunch tomorrow. Record beach sticker fee increase recommendation from the director. Mr. Beebe. Welcome.
Hi, Eric Beebe, Recreation Director. I've never used a clicker in 20 years, so this is exciting. Okay, so
Instructions.
I'm coming before you today to request some fee increases with our beach stickers for this upcoming summer. The reason being, in our budget request this year, we did increase our request for seasonal staff this year for a couple reasons. One of which is we're anticipating a very senior veteran staff coming back this year, which is good news for us at our beaches, so they will all be at a higher step pay rate. Also, just the way the Labor Day falls this coming year, we always open up the last Saturday in June, and we close, stop staffing beaches on Labor Day. So where last year we had, I believe, 66 days, actual days of summer, it would be around 73 this year. So it's 7 additional staffing days. Also, we're looking down the road in the next couple years coming to you to look to increase the rates of some of our summer staff so we can keep up and stay steady with the median of other towns around us, so we can keep getting the quality staff that we currently have. We've had a great staff, especially the past few years. They've been very proactive as far as preventing emergencies, responding to emergencies. It's just been great summers and great veteran staff and supervisory leadership too. The first one on here is our daily passes. This one, we charge $20 for a day fee at certain beaches, including Red River, Pleasant Road, Earl Road, and Long Pond. I'm not recommending any change in this at this time. We feel that 20 is a reasonable daily fee for a beach pass. There's another reason too to this that sounds trivial. Back in 2015 when it was $15, my beach supervisors spent half their day making change for our gate attendants. And it sounds like a little thing, but it was lots and lots of man hours going back and forth to the bank, making change, running it back to the gate attendant. So $20 is my recommended to hold steady at 20. The next one here is the resident beach sticker. We're at $30. It was last raised 5 summers ago, 2020. I'm looking to raise this to $35. Some of the towns, this average of 30, I believe it's $33, I can't really see it, is going to go up. I know Chatham and a couple other towns are also looking to increase theirs. So I think $35 would be a reasonable resident beach sticker fee. The next category is our 1 week sticker. That's currently at $65, and we're looking to increase that. Sorry, I can't see that real well. 75. Sorry, I got terrible eyesight. $75, so we're looking to go up 10, which would still keep us below the average. We do realize there's more room for increase there, but we find that it's better in small increments, not going up too much at once. The next one is our 2 week sticker, which we currently charge $125. The Cape average is $160. As you can see, there's not many towns that have a 2 week sticker available, but we are looking to increase this to $140. And lastly is our non-resident or non-taxpayer season sticker. We're way below in this one. It's $150 for Harwich. The Cape average is almost $250. We're looking for a $25 increase in this to $175. All of these increases, if supported, and if we see the same number of sales or around this, roughly the same number of sales, would account for about $50,000 to $60,000 in increased revenue for this coming year. So I believe that wraps it up, and I'd be happy to answer questions about it.
Questions for the record?
Sure, I'll start. Thanks for being here.
Sure.
I'll just start by saying I definitely understand your position when it comes to the daily pass and keeping it where it is. Personally, I would like to see that go to 30 and the resident sticker stay where it is, take care of the home team again. It's kind of my theme, but I understand there's a lot more resident beach stickers sold, so the financial impact is going to be much greater due to the volume of stickers sold. But let me ask this before I go into my next couple of questions.
Sure.
And this is going to sound really crazy. I don't go to the beach. Do you give are they stickers that actually go on the cars?
Day pass or
the
no,
day pass?
The day pass is a hang tag.
Okay.
So they get a hang tag, it's dated, and it's initialed by the gate attendant. It's hung from their rear view mirror.
Understood.
Yep.
And the longer, like the resident sticker for the season.
All the rest of them are stickers, different colors for different things.
So
And
they're
they-
identifiable, they're
Yep.
in the window, inside of the car, kind of?
It's on the back driver's side bumper.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. And is the cost, what is the cost of funding the stickers and the tags? I mean, it can't be much, but there's gotta be a cost.
The tags is very negligible. It's several $100s for the paper tags that we use. The stickers are ordered through the treasurer's department, so I'm not sure exactly how much, but it's not a huge amount.
Okay. And again, to your point about making change, which I can imagine is a nightmare, but you're making change for $65 to $75, because there's a $5 increment there, but I guess what I'm hearing is because it's a lot less, it's like 800 stickers versus 4,000 stickers?
Well, the daily passes is all cash.
Okay.
The stickers, we don't sell those on site. Those are sold either online
Yeah.
or in the treasurer's office or at the community center.
Okay.
So it's more of the on-site daily passes, the cash-only day passes.
So the 1 week sticker, is that sold at the beach?
No, the only one sold at the beach is daily.
Understood.
Yep.
That's all for me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to hear the rest of the board.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate this. I really like the idea, the increases are reasonable. You're not gouging, you're not gonna get a lot of bad feedback. $50,000 to $60,000 is good. A lot of these prices haven't gone up since 2014, so I hope you stay up with this and we continue to do it. He had something else, but just that I really liked what you did because, sometimes we could get accused of really raising fees. This is reasonable, people can live with it.
Yep.
And please come back this time next year with, you'll be able to judge based on other towns and,
Yep,
get
absolutely.
that increase. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anita?
Thank you. I do agree with what you've done. I think it's great. The only thing that I would maybe take back to reconsider is your daily pass.
Okay.
Even if it's, up to $30 or something like that, not with the, change or anything like that, but come back and see if that'll work, because this hasn't been changed in 2015.
And one thing we are looking at for daily passes, it's not going to be immediate, but we did look into the ability to use cards, debit cards and credit cards.
Yeah.
The problem is the Wi-Fi at all the beaches is terrible. So it'd be a very costly thing to go through to get in place. But it is on our radar, and it's something we're looking at. Probably not for this summer, but down the road, which would make increases a lot easier.
Because it's that square that they use?
Yeah, they'd have a tablet, but then we'd have to have Wi-Fi extenders, I believe, and yeah, it'd be a process.
Can't just use the machine that you...
I don't know. Yeah, that's a little charge card.
Yeah, no.
See if
No,
they still
but I
sell
like
those.
what you've done.
Thank
But
you.
I'd think about, I think with fees everywhere, they're going to be going up a little bit.
Yep.
And I think looking at the daily pass, that would be fine, too.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you.
Welcome to the 80s.
Where I live.
So I know there was some back and forth with the rec committee, and myself included, and yourself and the town administrator. Just so everybody's edification, the rec committee held off on an endorsement of the fees, the proposed fees at this time, pending a public hearing. The public hearing has not been conducted as of today. There's some desire on behalf, and I'm not speaking for the committee, but there's some desire on behalf of the committee for them to conduct the public hearing before they opine on their support or lack of for the new rates. I know Tony had floated an idea of perhaps we could conduct the public hearing and potentially a joint meeting with the rec committee. I don't know how time-sensitive this vote is. Does it have to happen, early January, or can it happen late January?
I think I'd defer to Tony on that, as far as what you would need for the budget projections.
Yes, I mean, we can flow that in, but I think when we talked, so wasn't there a February date or that you needed to know by?
Yeah,
or-
we would like to have it by February, yeah.
Okay. So when is the rec committee going to meet again? Or can
Not till the fourth, it's always the fourth Tuesday of the
Which is
month.
late January,
Late
so
January. And you'll,
I'm
yeah.
just worried a little bit about the timing.
Yeah, yeah. And I did share with Tony, my preference would be for the rec committee to conduct the hearing, similar to what the golf did. But again, I understand there's some constraints on timing.
Maybe we can post and have a public hearing earlier. It doesn't have to be the
If your
fourth
committee would
Tuesday.
be willing
Yeah.
to meet, like I know this, I guess this month, they met early because of the holidays.
Yep,
I don't know if they'd be willing to meet early again next month.
Yeah, I don't see why
If
not.
that's the case, perhaps they could
Sure.
conduct the hearing, vote on your proposal, and then you folks could bring it back to us, and as Anita said, perhaps tweaking a few
Okay.
of the particular line items.
Sure.
So I think timing-wise, so the board, meets the 12th, the 19th, and the 26th. So we just want to do it, have the rec committee meet and do the public hearing early enough so that the board can take, because they're the ones that have to raise the fee.
Yep. And I believe we have
So
to post
either
for
the
2
19th
weeks.
or the, and usually at public hearing, you're posting 2 weeks
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
So if I can just interrupt, perhaps you can coordinate with Tony, talk with the committee, and you and Tony can coordinate, and then if the committee's agreeable, then you can post the meeting, if they meet early, and then we can move forward from that.
Sure. I'll speak to the chair.
Yeah, okay, great. Perfect. Thank you, Eric.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions for Eric before he goes? Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving along to the review of the zoning bylaw and structure. Mr. Berry,
Good evening.
how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. Whoops, how are you guys?
Well, thank you.
Long night,
Appreciate
and
you
I
coming in.
will make sure that I keep this brief. I appreciate the 90 minutes you've given me.
Thought it was 120, but that's fine.
100, well, we'll take that too, whatever. But what I wanted to do tonight is actually, usually when you guys see me, I'm talking about history and the past. Tonight, I'd like to talk about the future. And the reason I do that is because in the planning board, we see things like 3 and 4 years ahead of anybody else. And I just wanted to come and get your support because I'd like to see stuff that you normally don't get on the annual report from the planning department. Usually it's kind of a statistical overview. How many cases do we hear? What is the makeup of the board? How many lawsuits have we engendered? All that kind of good stuff. And what I wanted to do is actually make a kind of a set of personal observations about what's going on in the planning board, because we're seeing these kind of tectonic changes in land use and land development. And there is important consequent economic impact of that, as well as quality of life issues that are impacted. And this is new territory for us. I've been on the board for almost 10 years. I've been the chair for 5. And in this last year, we've had about almost half a dozen meetings where we could have launched a town meeting because we had a quorum about one building. So people are on fire about this. You've probably seen it on the internet. You've seen it, elsewhere. You've seen it discussed at different coffee shops around town or outside of town or whatever. And what I'm looking for you to do is help me and help the planning department and the board manage the inevitable changes that we all face here. And we need to be planning on a longer time horizon than our system now allows us to. And our system is essentially a kludgy makeup of a planning bylaw that was passed in 1951, and 2 years later we instituted some subdivision laws. And it's not that we can't incorporate modern amenities and modern building and modern zoning issues. It's that with that 1951 DeSoto, we also have a 1974 Pinto gas tank and a 83 Caddy transmission, and people are now clamoring for a Tesla battery. The structure is not really sound for what we need to do in this town. We're getting to the end of the kind of land use that's permitted by law with the 40,000 square foot. We got to think about different alternatives. Now, we've had discussions with the Zoning Board of Appeal. We're going to set up a working group. We've had some very productive discussions so far about that. But again, the result is that what we have in our system now is we've got a system of, or a kind of a scenario of perpetual imbalance. And You all know what these look like, these Alexander Calder mobiles, where you smack one of those panels with, let's say, an ADU or a multifamily, and all of a sudden the whole thing goes out of kilter, and all the capital flows into the one use that's all of a sudden released and allowed to be used. And we find that this is money and attention pours into things that we're trying to accommodate, and it produces what I think we saw in the Capital Outlay Committee discussion described as unintended consequences. We are dealing with unintended consequences for something that we refuse to take responsibility for. I'd like to, again, have your help. And I think we could do this by making sure that we avoid the obvious errors that are heading our way with the current land use development system that we have. Does this look familiar to anybody? You've ever been down to Willow Street at 28 and you continue down across 28 by DJ's Wings and you go all the way down, I think of it as Willow Street, it's actually Yarmouth Road. The end of Yarmouth Road, we have the SS Titanic in dry dock. This is not Harwich, but it's coming here. That's what it looks like, right on the street, 60 feet high. This is what I would consider to be an example of like an algorithmically derived land use machinery to maximize the utilization of every cubic inch on that piece of land to the extent that height and that those dimensions are permitted by law. This is what's getting produced in Wellfleet. This is not Harwich, I would argue. And I think what we want to take a look at, and what I'm asking for, are two things. One is to help us explore the migration away from our use-based code to a form-based code, which is being explored in other towns, but not to the extent that we use exclusively what may be being rolled out in other towns, but something that has to be tailored specifically for Harwich. And, this is one more example. I look at this almost every day when I go to the gym. This is on Stevens and Bassett. This is another 60-footer. And those little creatures at the top are human beings. Again, I would argue this is not really kind of a Harwich look for us. So form-based code was created as an antidote to the kind of suburban sprawl that was really causing headaches for planners and municipalities in the 60s and 70s. And then by the 90s, what's called the new urbanism took shape, and they produced a whole series of experimental code variants that have been taken up by 600 communities in the United States so far. And it's also the standard that's being used for HUD. I believe that we can engage with one of any number of expert firms that do form-based code and could help us migrate from a form-based code where it's needed, primarily in the main vessels that are the main stretches of our town where we have something to preserve that is uniquely Harwich. And then there are areas that are landlocked that we can liberate with other form-based codes. And for those of you who know what's coming, I've given a little thought to this topic. And I'd like to distribute to you if you don't mind, my rationale.
Autograph it.
Although, this, I'm going to warn you that, if you're having any difficulty sleeping at night, I'm solving your problem.
All right.
And I also wanted to tell you that if you're familiar with that famous stamp with the upside-down biplane, that nobody actually saw the errors, this is riddled with typos. So I will have this is the first print, so these are all galleys. I'd be delighted to replace them, but again, these are going to be worth millions when the time comes. So my point here is that we're I hear nonstop at our meetings, we lack a vision for what Harwich ought to be like and what we're planning for. This is something I think we ought to really drill into. I think that we have a nice, starting point with the local comprehensive plan, but a lot of the language there is the consultant's language. I want us to drill in, own our own language, go through this process with us on the output, not the corporate or the consulting vision of the output. I want our stuff in there. And this is what you end up with. Form-based code has a visual vocabulary of what do we want our town to look like. Do we want to remain a town, or do we want to become a suburb? I think we want to remain a town, a small town at that. And when we put these building blocks together, we can begin to see that there are patterns that work very well in time, and we actually have the source code for a lot of town building in our own town. We just walk by and we don't even see it. We don't recognize the settlement patterns that have evolved over almost 400 years here. So I'm saying we ought to leverage that, look at it, inventory it, and know it. The second and most complementary component to this would be a piece of research that was shared at the Cape First project in Witchmere this summer, where a number of different municipal professionals, including planners, got together. And one of the presentations was by this firm out in the Midwest, and they do land use analytics. How great would it be for us to have, like we have here, a revenue per acre histograph, like bar charts, projected against a map so we can see where the highest and lowest revenues are, what the geographic and demographic realities of certain parts of town are, and how we can begin to say, hey, we could raise revenue, we could raise quality of life, we can plan for developments and look at our planning system as a more coherent, long-range, kind of generational investment in our future, not this kind of kludgy DeSoto that wants to be a Tesla. Let's just kind of square that circle. And some of the things that they were looking at, I like this revenue per acre thing, just was like mind-blowing. I'll be happy to send you a link to the video for this. What about road cost cycles? This is something that can be mapped out. And look at these high and low, this is like a, sine waves here that show that we can project out into the future the kind of cost cycles that we ought to be looking at as opposed to revenue, as well as what kind of sustainability issues we can be considering. So this to me is like, a no-brainer. And like I said at the beginning, we're facing like this tectonic change in town. The land is moving, the investment, the money is moving in different ways. It's changing the shape and quality of our life, of our town. I don't claim to have the answer, but I believe that we can do a better job as a town managing what we have and what we want to be. And because we have such great and deep history and such great traditions and all this great architecture around us, let's use what we got to look into the future. So that's what I got. And for those of you who are not receiving a copy of the book, you can't see it here. It's visionforharwich.org. You can get the PDF version of it there. And thank you. That's happy to take any questions or. So
Once this is worth millions, I'll happy to entertain some offers.
There you go. Oh, and one other thing, just, sorry, should have thought of that. I told you we've been working with ZBA on some proposed bylaw changes for the next town meeting. This is kind of a quick look of what we're all kind of circled around and kind of believe makes sense. I'm sure that there might be one or two that might make the cut here, but this is just kind of like a picture, look at things that are, again, future-oriented, things that are coming up. So thank you for your time.
Comments for Duncan?
Sure. You mentioned you wanted us to be of help to you.
Yes.
Elaborate on that. What could the select board do for you to help further your vision?
Can we formalize a process by which we can get a consultant? We can get 2 or 3 bids, get a consultant, to help us push through. This is not something we can do internally in town. I would rather get really good talent, whether it's regional, and there's the Congress for the New Urbanism in the New England chapter. I've spent a couple hours with them. They've sent me a lot of material. Some of the stuff that I showed you was from one of their preferred vendors already doing work on the Cape. So that would be one thing, and the second thing would be to fund one of these studies by, I think the firm is called Urban 3. You don't have to do a big thing, and guess what? I also spoke with them. They're doing a Barnstable County piece, so they've got a big thing that they're chunking out. Maybe we can just fund one small wedge of that pie and get some good data for us to think about. And I think this data would be great for assessor's office, planning department, building department, the treasurer. This is a good way to kind of do it and dashboard it. Maybe we could keep it live, I don't know. So those are two kind of money asks. If you're interested in going here, I'll get the stuff for you. We'll put it through.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're always good for at least a new word or two. So, kludgy.
Kludgy, oh yeah.
Yeah, clearly somebody online saw my face when you said it, basically figured out I had no idea what that meant, sent me the definition.
Okay.
Ill-assorted parts put together to make something.
Yep.
So, thank you for that. It's a new word. I'm worn out, and I know a lot of our other townspeople are worn out of people moving to our town, essentially leveraging the personal property rights, which I believe heavily in, and changing little by little, corner by corner, village by village, the character of what this town means to me and what this town means to a lot of people as well.
Right.
So, as I said a couple meetings ago, when Chair Howell brought this up, or I brought it up, or someone brought it up, I think it's time for the town of Harwich to play offense. I'm tired of playing defense. And this is our next emergent step, as far as I'm concerned. So whatever it takes, in my opinion, to move this forward, advance this quickly and smartly, fiscally responsibly,
Right.
I'm in 100% support, and I thank you for all your work and your effort and your passion and all your new fun words to get this all at least before us to have a discussion.
Great.
Appreciate it.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Mr. Chair. I'll write down kludgy for you later.
Please, right.
Kind of weird, too.
Yeah. Anything else, Mark?
Just following up on what you said, maybe if you could get some ideas and costs and things like that and forward it to the chair or to Tony, that would give us something to work with.
I'm on it.
Anita?
No, I really appreciate you bringing this forward. Growing up here in town, I grew up in the east, and there was nothing out there. And I really think we need to be proactive on how we really would like our town to be going forward.
Yep.
So I think this is a good thing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anita.
I think to your overall point, we've heard from plenty of folks recently, some concern of what the character of this town's gonna look like in the future, and they certainly wanna have a say in what it should look like and how they want it to develop. And over the years, I've driven through parts of Harwich, and I've scratched my head and said, why the hell was that ever done there? But I can assure you, it's nothing like what you've brought up in Hyannis. I drive through there daily, and it blows me away what they're doing in that community. And maybe in the end, it works for them.
Right.
It certainly doesn't work for the town of Harwich. I personally think they're gonna have, what's the term of the night, unintended consequences? I think they're rot for that over there. And I think the next 5 or 10 years, they're gonna have some issues that they never anticipated dealing with. So it sounds like to me that you have the support of this board to at least do some additional research and come back with potentially some numbers for us to codify this and put some information before the town at town meeting.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Truly appreciate all your efforts.
My pleasure.
Thank you for the book.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along to the update from the Monomoy Regional School District on the Monomoy Elementary School boilers and tennis court. Welcome, gentlemen. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Good evening, Select
Thank
Board.
you. Before I get started, just before this meeting took place, the school committee voted Dr. Millen to be my successor. So I would like to kindly invite her to come to the children's table as we head into the holidays.
Where the best food is served.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
And starting tomorrow, I'll just say, anything that's being asked, I'll just say, well, that's a Robin and Michael Robin.
Your vacation starts tomorrow?
Yeah. No, I've got a lot of work to do between now and then, but.
Between
but-
now and tomorrow?
Now and the end of the year. But actually, if you know me and the way that I run the district, this is the team that I've always turned to. It's like, it's the three of us are involved in a lot of decision-making, and I'm glad to have Robin be part of this, and I look forward to seeing where these two take the district next.
Excellent. All right.
So next,
Floor is
we're
yours.
gonna start on the Harwich Elementary School boiler replacement. So I'm just gonna, a couple of quick slides just to set the scene, if you like. You've seen this chart before, we have aging facilities, and we're just conscious that in the coming years, repair costs are gonna go up, and we need to have a plan for replacing equipment and repairing buildings as we go forward. We do have 3 projects kind of already out there that require borrowing. The high school construction, that's already complete, obviously, we're just paying off the debt for that. We was approved at last year's town meeting, the siding and windows replacement project at the middle school. So the work on that will begin in April, maybe even March, to start taking off the siding and replacing the siding, and also replacing the windows as they go. The first debt payments of that will be in the FY27 budget, which will be coming forward in a few weeks. Then the second part of that project is the roof replacement, and that construction won't start until until 28. That's 27 into 28, so next summer. And so the debt on that won't begin until FY28. We'll have short-term borrowing in the meantime to get us through. So right now that project is just at the schematic design phase. We've submitted the project to the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, for approval for their funding. And so we'll be coming back to you for town meeting for an article to approve that funding so we can go ahead with the project. So those are really the ones that are current right now is the siding and windows and the roofing at the middle school.
Do the windows look promising as far as arriving on time?
Yeah, well, so that is we're trying to get the order in before the end of the year. So our designer and construction company are working flat out right now to get all the details finalized, because so that's key. The order time on windows is the biggest challenge in terms of timing. But the construction company are also keen. They're coming up with plans of how they can get started early and what they can do to get ahead of the plan, so that we make sure come August and school's coming back in September, the project's complete. So that's our aim. All right, so this is this is a sort of construction schedule we've started to put together to try and just plan out how we might tackle some of the big projects we have coming. And I'm really just showing you that to just give you the context that we know we have a lot of moving parts, a lot of ongoing projects, or projects coming up to think about. I would just thank Mark for all her work. We did come and talk to the Capital Outlay Committee. Martha and the committee also came and toured Harwich Elementary School, which is great. In the process, just echoing what Martha said earlier, the process has been really great this year. We're here before it's not even Christmas yet, and we're coming to tell you what's happening, which I think is much improvement on last year and previous years. But that was just a quick aside. But we know we have a lot of projects coming, and so we had applied to the MSBA for a project to replace the boilers at Harwich Elementary School, and that's really what we're here to talk about this evening. In Harwich Elementary School, as you know, now the town of Harwich, under that regional agreement, is responsible for 100% of the costs related to the LA capital and debt and costs at the elementary school. So we have 3 boilers there at the moment. They're natural gas-fired boilers. 2 were installed in '91 and 1 was in 2003. So with those oldest boilers at 35 years old, they are beyond their expected useful life, but they are serviced, annually in good condition. I mean, literally, it's just the years kind of got them close to the top of our priorities. We started to think, what's our plan for replacing these? And we applied we also knew that the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, provide their grants, and they approve projects largely based on the years, how old, because they get project applications from all over the state. They sort them by age, and that's how they decide the cutoff. So we knew that this was a good candidate to get into their program. So we applied and we were accepted into their program. As this, as we went through the application process, we learned that they had changed the nature of the program. So in the past, it used to just be a boiler, swap a boiler, they would replace a boiler with a higher efficiency, but it's essentially the same technology. But they have changed that program, and now it's a heat pump conversion program. So instead of getting a new boiler, you get heat pumps throughout the building. So that's obviously a very different program and a different project. In addition, and in terms of ensuring efficiency of the project and of the building, any building with a roof over 15 years old has to replace the roof as part of the project. So the reason, and that's why we're kind of here before you this evening, is this project, which in theory could be this relatively smallish project of replacing boilers, is now this much bigger project of a heat pump conversion and roof replacement. And we wanted to bring this to your attention before we made any decision about going with this or not going with this plan, because essentially, it's your building, and we wanted to make sure we were all on the same page before we made any, significant decisions.
Yeah, and this dovetails into the green initiatives that Martha was referring to. So it's impacting not just schools. It's impacting all municipalities in Massachusetts. But you can imagine that, if you go with what could be a $3-4 million project replacing boilers, and now you're replacing a roof, and with an all-new technology, and I think a concern Michael and I have is that you would be on the front end of that line on replacing the new technology, and I don't know if that's necessarily the place that you want to be. And as I explained to Martha and the Capital Planning Committee, it's not, you wouldn't want the superintendent and business manager unilaterally making decisions on a building that, that Harwich ultimately is fiscally responsible for. So we want to go into this, and have a conversation with eyes wide open.
So, appreciate that.
Essentially, we have 2 options. One is that we go ahead with this MSBA program, which involves replacing the boilers with heat pumps and replacing the roof. But then we get the boiler, we get reimbursed for that at around, I don't know what the figure would be, but for the middle school project, it's 38%. So
What was that percent?
38.
38.
Yeah. So I've assumed 38% in these calculations here. So that's option 1. Option 2 is that we replace the boilers ourselves, and we pay 100% of the cost of that, and then we schedule the roof when at the appropriate time, and then we would be able to apply for the MSBA reimbursement for the roof, but it would be as a separate project. So, and this is this is rough timelines. I really appreciated the comment to the Capital Outlay Committee is that these our plans change as more information becomes available. So we have a schedule for when these projects might happen, but if there was some new information about the condition of the building or the boiler, then we may have to move things around. But our plan right now, option 1 would be, we're in the project now, so we would go ahead with MSBA. This design would start in July, and we'd have a year for a design, and then construction would be in 28-29. I don't know exactly what that would look like. We wouldn't really know until we'd done the first phase of the project, the schematic design in 2027. Alternatively, if we wait and go with our approach, we think we're not, like the boiler is old, but it's still working, leaks occasionally, but nothing significant. It's not in dire need of replacement. So we think we have some time, especially given the other projects we have going on, to wait on that. And also with the roof, we'd want to wait until we got back into the MSBA for their help to reimburse the roof replacement. The roof does not need to be replaced at the moment. It's in fine condition. We did have some leaks a few years ago, but they've all been repaired, and we've not had any significant problems since then. So that would be those are basically the timelines for those two options. So and this is quite a busy slide, but I tried to kind of work out a 20-year cost comparison of the two projects just to really sense check what our gut feeling is. So the heating system replacement if we go with MSBA's option, if we went with a complete heat pump system, so that involves changing all the heating system throughout the building. And, there isn't a lot of clear cost data. The MSBA did a heat pump study and looked at 18 different schools and estimated the cost of converting those schools to a heat pump system. And they estimated the cost between $25 a square foot and $180 a square foot. So I think that wide range is an indicator of how unclear the process is at the moment. So there's just not a lot of experience of doing this. And when they looked at what the drivers of those costs were, the age of the buildings and elementary schools, partly because they use heating only from unit ventilators as a primary heating and ventilation system, which is exactly what we have in Harwich Elementary School. So the things they identified as pushing costs up are things that are present for us. And we also know that on the Cape, we tend to pay a premium for being a bit further away from the higher population centres of Cape. That said, so in order to estimate this, I took the middle of the road. So essentially I took between 25 and 180. But that still and then forecast out a couple of years, because obviously this isn't 2024 numbers, so I put it out a couple of years, and that gets up to about $15 million just for the heating replacement. So, I mean, all the other numbers we can talk about, but really this is what determines the everything else, the difference between the projects, because a boiler replacement, and for this I used previous MSBA projects to get a sense of the cost, and you're looking about $3 million for that in 7 years' time, 8 years' time. So that's that cost differential of $13 million. It just sort of determines everything else that comes through. And we don't spend that much money on heating. Even if we are going to save some money from this, even if we do, we're not going to save $13 million in 20 years. So I also factored in, if we were to replace the roof now versus in 7 years' time, the reimbursement we would get. So obviously we get the reimbursement around $6 million from the MSBA for the boiler. We would also get the roof reimbursement, but that we would also get the roof reimbursement when we did that as a sole project. And then I looked at 20-year energy costs, assuming we do get some efficiency savings from the new system, and maintenance costs. I mean, those really were just guessing really, because with the new system, I have a sneaky feeling that when you put more complicated systems in theory, they're going to save you money, but often they're now more costly to maintain. That's been our experience at high school. So, in theory, they're supposed to save us money. I'm not sure about that. But just in terms of cash flow, the difference between the two projects is around $5 million after the even after the reimbursements taken into consideration. And I tried to do a sort of net present value calculation over 20 years and the residual cost of the equipment if we're able to wait a little longer, and that just extends that gap between the two projects to $7 million. And I'm going to say this before Scott does, because he's going to, and this is all based on the median, that middle of the road estimate. And if we think, what my experience is, as soon as you get into these projects, the costs are not in the middle, they start creeping up into the top quartile, and that would push that gap even further. So, you know, when we initially started this project, we were, you know, not excited, but interested in the idea of, you know, this new technology, and maybe it might be more efficient and more comfortable environment for students and staff, and good for the building and for the long term as part, you know, and as part of green communities and that philosophy. But just the gap, the premium cost to us seems too high. But we wanted to come and talk to you before we made any final decision.
So I'll interrupt you now.
Yeah.
Everybody in the room knows where I stand, but I appreciate all the detail and the breakdown, because it's very helpful. And, you know, to spend an extra $7 million to get a 30 to 40% coupon.
Yeah.
I just blows me away. I can't wrap my head around it, but I won't steer the board in any one direction. Any comments on what Michael has presented thus far?
The heat pumps, are they roof mounted? Or?
So that's part of the problem. So this is all my numbers based on the data that the MSB have provided. What would be awesome would be we'd go through the schematic design, we'd have all the engineers and architects come out, and they'd work out exactly what kind of heat pump system it was, and we'd get a much better idea of the costs. But that alone costs, you know, $400,000, $500,000. But so according to they would determine the appropriate heat pump technology to use once they had a look at the building. But what they said is
there's a reasonable chance that they would be located on the roof. The challenge you also have is that there's a solar array on the roof of Harwich Elementary School. So, you know, so you would be potentially needing to create real estate for whatever the heat pump units are. So they're up, they're up and out, out of way, which, Pete and I probably are very eye to eye on how we look at the numbers on this one.
Just one other question. Heat pumps do both heating and cooling.
Yeah.
Now, I think I saw in the capital plan, you were replacing a lot of rooftop units at the elementary school.
Yep.
Could you avoid replacing some of the rooftop units and using the heat pumps to both provide heat and air conditioning?
So the units that we do have units up there that are heating and cooling, that, so there's some train units that are up there that we have to, periodically replace. And I know when we, that's been, sort of on our plan to, to get to those units. And, so I don't think this is going to replace those, because those are in sort of larger space, like the community room as you first enter. Harwich Elementary School has that, one of those units. This is really looking at how you heat, each of the classrooms as you go around the entire facility. It's swapping out that technology.
Last question. Any other energy rebates? You have the MSBA. I know there's, through the green communities, they have Rise Engineering.
Yeah.
Have you looked into other energy savings or incentives other than the MSBA?
Not for this, and again, that's where it gets difficult, because part of that would be part of the schematic design process. But I'm not aware of anybody else offsetting this cost. We did apply for one project for the middle school, but we're not successful in getting into that.
And I know that one of the Barnstable schools went and applied for the same, for the same money. And if you look back at what projects were funded last year through the green grants that we applied for, hoping we might be able to get some of that money to help offset the cost of the windows at the middle school. The projects, it was clear the direction the state was steering this, because the majority of the projects that were approved for money were heat pump type conversions. And again, I'm not sure that any of the money was going to go cover the whole amount of the project, but help sort of soften the blow to to communities. So I know that one of the schools in Barnstable was a grant recipient, and it'd be interesting to see over the next few years how that how much did it really cost, and how is that playing off? Because I think the one thing that I agree with Michael, if you look back in time and say, okay, what did it cost to to heat the old Harwich High School, which was a univent system. It was much cheaper to heat Harwich High School than you build an all-new building with all new technologies in it that have a lot of different moving parts. The old univents were fairly simple to operate and maintain, and the new systems that get put in place are far more complex.
Agreed. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would challenge you, Scott. I don't think we had heat in the high school, at least when I was there. I don't remember.
I could probably go back further than you, though.
They had it, they just didn't switch it on.
Winter coat and a hat.
That's right.
No wonder I got C's. Anyway, I'm not gonna go down the road of what I've been seeing with our construction projects, which is where the state says, if you do this, we're gonna give you, I love your word, coupon. We're gonna give you a coupon if you don't, but still install something that's wildly more energy efficient than what's in there right now. You're out of luck, and you just gotta fund it yourself. I just can't believe that we live in a state that does that, especially since we're carrying the third or fourth most expensive electrical costs in the country.
Yeah.
So that just blows me out. So I said I wasn't gonna get into it, so I'm gonna leave it there. I do have a question. Is there a generator in the Harwich Elementary School?
Yes.
And so if we were to go with the heat pump, the generator's gas fed?
Yep. Yes.
Well, it has to be,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
Because if not, they'd both go down at the same
Yeah,
time.
I thought it was, yes, that was kind of another place.
But I
Yes.
think where you're going with this is, while we have generators, the generators, when they kick on, will take care of, we'll call it
Yeah.
life safety
Sure.
things.
Yeah.
The
They,
basics.
they are not going to go heat
Not gonna
heat
fire
a
up
whole
the kiln.
building.
No.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
But it would fire, I'm just trying to
Thank you.
make sure we understand it all, it would fire up the heat pumps, because one of the problems I have is with this push of heat pumps, what happens when we lose our power?
Yeah.
There's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of homes on Cape Cod that didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they don't have power for 7 days because there's a snowstorm. They have absolutely no way to heat their house. I'll yield there and listen to the rest of.
The existing generators, and not to go down that rabbit hole with you, but they wouldn't handle the load of all the new equipment.
And that's
So
what
now you're replacing your
Now
new
you're-
new
and the
roof and a
generator.
generator.
And the generator.
It's pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, Jeff, because I was going, is there a backup system somewhere? That if these things are on the roof,
Yeah.
wonder if something happens to the roof or something happens to the things on the roof, is there some kind of backup? I was thinking, I didn't realize thinking a generator, but, or some other kind of system.
Well, ironically, they do talk about keeping some redundancy and maintaining one of your old boilers so that it could continue to.
Of course they do.
Yeah, I can date myself because I graduated from Harwich High in 1970, so it's a lot different back then than it is now with all the technology, so.
And I think having that ability to heat when the power's out, there was one year where we had, some really crazy storms that, they weren't snow days, they were storm days, and our towns, both towns were largely without power for several days, and I went and was having conversations with the fire departments on, we have generators, we have our life safety things. I was starting to get worried that we had kids and families that were at homes without heat, and while we couldn't blow air out of the univents, we could sure send hot water through the univents so that it would be radiant heat, it just wouldn't be blowing out, so that, so the building we were able to heat the building, and we went and, made the decision that we were gonna open up regardless of what the power situation was, just to make sure that we had kids in, in a warm setting and learning going, and I sent an email out to our staff, get ready to go teach old school if we have to, and then thank goodness the power came on just before, I think hours before we were gonna open school.
Nice. Those existing boilers, I know you said they're in decent, condition for their age.
Yep.
And your vendor doesn't seem to
Yeah.
think anything's imminent, but they're able to source parts when they need them?
Yeah. so far.
And they don't foresee an issue with that in the
None-
next couple of
none
years
that has
anyway?
told me, nope.
And on your prior slide, I think you had it out to 2033 and
Yeah.
34.
Yeah,
We have no idea what the hell the state will be offering at that
No.
point, so perhaps there's something
well, yeah.
better at that time,
Yeah,
right?
and as the
Unlikely, but
technology
perhaps.
might have changed, you know, the technology might have
Yeah,
changed.
I like that.
And to see what the impact is when all these facilities go to heat pumps and what it
Yeah,
does to
yeah, well, then
their
we can
utility
learn.
bills and,
Yeah, I know,
you know,
and electricity cost.
correct,
Right.
on a grid that is, you know, less than adequate, but
Yeah,
what could go wrong?
Yeah.
So at this point, are you looking for us to give you an idea? I think you've
well,
heard
we
it,
would
but-
like a steer, but, I mean, so the next steps, if we were to go, we met with MSB this morning, well, so we wanted to make sure that our decision here wouldn't jeopardize future projects with MSB.
Mhm.
And they said, they were very supportive, and they said that's not the case, that they want what's best for your local communities. So they said, you know, just let us know if you don't want to continue with the project, and we'll just have to put it in writing. I mean, we don't necessarily need a vote or anything from you, but just,
Sure.
I guess, you
Yeah.
know, if you thought we were heading in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Because but our intention really, I think, from this conversation is probably to let them know we don't want to take part in this project.
Would that be the consensus of the board at this point?
Mr. Chair, would it be
Yeah.
appropriate to ask Martha if she has any input on this, since we talked capital plan?
Martha, you have expertise in RTUs?
Yeah, right. Just interested to hear your
I'm
take.
just a numbers person, so when I look at those numbers,
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense. I mean, unless there was some penalty for not participating in the program,
Yeah.
I think the wait and see,
Wait and see.
get the
approach.
most useful life out of what you have, replace it with like, makes sense from a financial perspective. And I also think putting that kind of money, because we're paying 100% of it, right, with debt in that 2-year plan is really tough on us trying to figure out where we are. We just don't have, I don't think we have the capacity.
I
That's my thought.
I
Right,
think,
and if we have a catastrophic issue, that will change the game. But
Yeah.
right now, it appears that we can get these things through
Yeah.
for the next, 5, 7, 8 years.
Thank you. Would it make any sense to replace
one
one,
of the boilers.
and then
Yeah.
in 3 years,
Yeah.
the next one, and then
Well, so we might end up replacing 3 with 2. We might not need all 3 eventually, so it might be that we're, but yeah, so that is something we can look at as
the
well.
one from 1991, kind of,
Yeah,
I mean, that's a long time ago.
yeah,
And, maybe that's a capital plan,
Yeah.
For 2028.
yeah, I think that's the right idea.
And then 2030, we
it.
at least put it on the plan.
Yeah,
And then we can push it if we need to push it. But I don't think we should just
No,
sit and wait.
No.
no, I
But
totally
I
agree.
think we need
Again,
a
I
plan.
think they were looking for direction, and now the direction's there, and it will flow through the TA office and the capital committee as well. And
And I would just echo, what Martha said is, I mean, we were optimistic about this. We're not against it in theory, but it's just the numbers just don't, the premium just doesn't make sense, especially given where we are with all those other projects we have going on. It's just doesn't feel like it's worth going down this road.
Mr. Chair, just one thing.
Please.
Sean Libby put in a furnace at
Yeah.
204
Was-
system, 204. I think it was around $500,000.
Yeah.
So just a thought, speak to him.
Thank you.
That's a bigger building, I believe, and
Yeah,
pretty reasonable price compared to your 2 million.
yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
do we want to talk about tennis courts, or are we,
Sure, I'm just,
Someone
it's just happy,
you really want to talk about tennis courts?
happy just to,
wants to wait?
Say no.
yeah, can we wait till,
July
next
1?
week, and I'll call it a Michael Robin. No, I just wanted to give the board, just a little insight and heads up. So I was invited with the athletics director to the Chatham Park and Rec Commission meeting. And at the meeting, it was brought up that they were wanting to see, tennis court repairs behind the middle school. And I explained to them that I hadn't heard anyone raise that there were issues with the tennis courts that needed to be, put on the capital plan, and that we had already sort of published the capital plan for this year, had already sent it off to the select board. So I said, I'm happy to go and work to go and potentially queue something up for next year. But also shared with them the uniqueness about the tennis courts at Chatham Elementary School and suggested that, that they understand. And, I think it would be a good conversation, when the boards do talk with each other about the political realities of the tennis courts. So, Michael and I and the facilities director have walked the tennis courts. There's some cracks that do need to get filled. The tennis courts could use to get repainted. I know early on when we came together as Monomoy, the courts we did, I think in our first couple years together, we did repaint the tennis courts, repainting small money, replacings, a different story. We got one quote from a company that said that they could replace, they didn't want to go and just fill cracks, and they were initially quoting about $500,000. I went and got a quote, or had the facilities director get a quote from the company that did the pickleball courts at the middle school, and that company came back with a number that's close to about $250,000. But again, the pickleball courts were done with the town and and sort of whatever sort of fundraising efforts and grant efforts. I did share that that while we do have our middle schoolers do play tennis on those courts, the bulk of the use for those courts is community use, that and much of it happens during the summertime. And I think for me, the courts they're rather akin to the fields behind Sisson Road and Harwich Elementary, where as we came together as a district, it was sort of like, okay, well, who's responsible for maintaining the baseball field back there and mowing and everything? And I do think that it would behoove a conversation to happen, because as I've pointed out to the folks in Chatham, I don't think Harwich is going to jump up and down and say, hey, we'd really like to go and pay roughly 3/4 of the cost of replacing Chatham's tennis courts. But it is in that sort of gray area on, they're on the school district's at least land, but I do think that there needs to be some political sensitivity to how the courts ultimately get replaced. We can't go and work with our facilities to go do some repairs and make sure that they're safe for folks to use until they can get on somebody's capital plan, but there needs to be greater conversation on them.
Nice to be months away from retirement, isn't it? And again, I won't speak for the board, I'll let them opine, but the fact that the conversation started through the rec department tells me all I need to know. And it's a great use for CPC funds, right? I understand that it's on your school property, but I don't, I'll leave it there. Mark, anything else? Jeff?
I have nothing to add.
Anita? Yeah, so, probably not yet. All right. Any other items you wanted to discuss?
No, that's.
No, we're looking forward to the next presentation.
As a wait. Yeah, absolutely.
around?
Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Mike,
Thank you all.
can I just say quick-
Congratulations.
Thanks, Michael.
We're gonna hang around.
Oh, good, oh, yeah.
Mark, do you want to take point on this? Or?
Yes, I am. There we go. This presentation is put on by mainly Scott Norm and Jennifer Mintz, who were very instrumental in putting it together. I had a small role to play. And what you're going to see today is a comparison between the two towns of Harwich and Chatham. Chatham is our partner. So, as we have done since the beginning of regionalization, we want to work together. And we also have, thanks to Jennifer Mintz, a snapshot of where Harwich is now in terms of its tax levy and ability to take on any more debt. So with that, I'll leave it to Scott Norman. If you're there, ready, Scott?
I'm here. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Excellent. And thank you, Jamie, for flipping the slides for me tonight. That didn't work from out here in Arizona. So just as a little bit of introduction on top of what Mark said, he and I have been thinking about data that would help answer this question about whether or not it's worth looking at the assessment formula. And one of the main things that we've done is to collect data about school costs over the past 15 years or so, which is a period that includes data from both before and after the current school district was formed, I think in 2012. And we're thankful for help from the district as well, especially Michael McMillan, for the data that he provided going all the way back, I think to 2008. And we also were able to benefit from a huge amount of data. I was really surprised by the amount of data that's available to the general public on websites that are maintained by the Commonwealth, both on school data as well as town financial data. So these slides are really meant to show how the merger has impacted costs in both Harwich and Chatham, and to compare these trends to what has happened in other Cape Cod towns which have retained independent school systems across this 15-year period. We also put together comparisons meant to approximate the ability to absorb school cost increases in Harwich and Chatham, which turns out to be quite different between the two towns. Now, to be honest, when I went into this project a few months ago, I really thought that a formula based on the percentage of total student population was the simplest and most equitable method that we could have. But I've come to think that other approaches really should be explored. So get on to this first bar chart. These are the increase in cost per student in each of these towns, as well as in Harwich and Chatham, across this 15-year period, the total cost increase, but adjusted for inflation by deflating numbers by the Consumer Price Index. And this is just to reflect the real increase in cost per student over the period. The Harwich and Chatham figures were supplied by the Monomoy District Business Office, and the other school data came from one of these state websites, specifically the Department of Elementary and Secondary School and District Profiles, a wealth of information. So the real cost per student increased pretty much everywhere except for Sandwich, but costs in Harwich on a per student basis increased by 24%, very close to the average of the 5 towns to the left. But the increase in Chatham was significantly less, a little less than 16%. And the following slides attempt to try and figure out why that was the case. We go to the next slide, please. This is just the detailed data behind the first bar chart. Anyone wants to look at in their spare time. Next slide, please. Okay, here's a 15-year history of total school assessments. This is not per student. And the blue and orange lines are the actual costs provided by the district business office. And the green line is what the Chatham costs would have been if its per student costs had grown at the same rate as the average of the 5 independent Cape schools costs had grown. And you can see that's a significant difference between the green line and the orange line. It amounts to about $3 million a year across practically the whole period since the merger in savings versus what Chatham would have paid if they had stayed independent and if their costs had increased like the other 5 independent schools on the Cape had. Next slide, please. So one of the reasons I think Chatham has enjoyed a lower rate of increase in their costs is a fundamental fact about the merger of a small organization and a large organization. And the underlying phenomena that I believe is at play here is the fact that a smaller organization, a smaller school system, has fixed costs, just like the larger unit does. But those fixed costs, such as facilities, administration, technology, and support services like procurement, legal, and accounting, represent a significantly larger portion of total costs than they do in a larger school system. Because the cost of an accounting office or the cost of certain administrative offices is not going to be that different just because the number of students is 2 or 3 times as great. So what happens when a smaller unit and a larger unit merge is that the fixed cost savings are much greater for the smaller school, in this case Chatham, because all of a sudden their fixed costs go down much more dramatically than Harwich's did. Ours were already probably significantly lower than Chatham's on a per student basis. Next slide, please. And one thing I forgot to mention is that this is not a factor that was anticipated or accounted for in the current assessment formula, which is basically just based on a percentage of total student population. So another major difference between the two towns is the levels of income, property values, and municipal budget flexibility. There are different years represented in these 6 different measures, but they're all the most recent year available on the Massachusetts Department of Local Services Public Data Bank. And so I'll just go through the 6 very, very quickly. Chatham's per capita income, 63% higher than Harwich's. The property value per capita, 2.5 times as great. Chatham had 27 times as much excess tax levy capacity as Harwich, and that's the room between the current tax levy and the maximum permitted by Proposition 2.5. The residential tax rate in Chatham is 59% of Harwich's tax rate as a percentage of assessed value. The average single-family home assessed value was 73% greater in Chatham, and in the most recent year available, the free cash generated in Chatham was nearly double the amount generated in Harwich. And I should also note that some school districts in Massachusetts and outside of Massachusetts have adopted formulas which take wealth and these other economic conditions into account in the assessment formula. Next slide, please. Again, this is just the detailed data behind those 6 bar graphs on the previous slide. And next slide is another way of formatting some of the data on the prior page. Using those statistics, you can calculate how much an average family paid, in this case in 2024, for school costs within their tax bill. It's not itemized, but you can calculate it. So the first lines of this table calculate the average total tax bill per household. And even though the average residence value in Chatham is 73% higher than Harwich, the fact that its tax rate is lower yields very similar average tax bills in the 2 towns, about $5,500 each. But because educational costs in Chatham are only about 20% of the total expense being billed to citizens versus about 40% in Harwich, the average that a family in Harwich pays for educational costs is about twice what's paid in Chatham. So these are only a few of the factors that could be brought into play in discussing a new assessment approach that we might take. But let me stop here to let Mark handle the last few slides, which I think examine some of the broader implications of this on the school budget and our tax bills.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So Proposition 2.5 and override votes. Many of us are aware of that, but people who are watching at home may not be. So When a town's expense budget requires more tax revenue than its levy limit, voters must approve a permanent increase in the limit. The levy limit override must be approved at town meeting and by ballot on a town-wide election, both by a simple majority. This was interesting. This was, I think, Dana from the Finance Committee has mentioned this before. In 2025, across the state, 33 of 63 levy limit proposals passed. Or, another way of looking at it is 50% of them failed. Harwich is currently collecting 99.76% of its levy limit, just $148,000 short of the dollar limit. And we had a presentation here in front of the Select Board a few months ago. According to the UMass Gerontology presentation, 1/3 of Harwich residents over the age of 65 have incomes less than $50,000 per year, with 21% expressing concern about paying their property taxes. Next slide, please. This is some recent information that has come from the Finance Director. As you can see, in fiscal year '26, the excess capacity is $147,000. Next year, the excess levy capacity is only $50,000. So if we have a bad storm or some unforeseen events, we don't have enough money to fund our budget, and you have to be faced with a 2.5 override. So that was very good data that we received. And finally, and this is Charles Griska's been the canary in the coal mine, and this is what he has always said for years, and we're starting to see what he has forewarned us about, is that if the levy limit override vote fails, the budget for the town, must be revised, must be revised to fit within the new levy limit. Adjustments may take place throughout the budget, including town departments and schools. And this is where it comes in with our regional agreement in Monomoy. Examples include of where cuts will be programs and service reductions, staff layoffs, school curriculum impacts, increased fees, and building maintenance delays. So that's where we're at. We have a partner in Chatham that we're hoping to discuss this with them in the future and to find out what the next steps are. Scott, if you'd be willing to just to give us an idea of what you think would be the next steps to take this forward, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, off the top of my head, the things that we've talked about is to look at examples of other school districts that have used assessment formulas that take other factors into account. I think it's also important to educate the Select Board of Chatham about this phenomena of the inherent advantage, cost advantage that a small unit has when it merges with a larger unit in terms of being relieved of a heavier burden of fixed costs. I think that will be useful to remind them of kind of the natural benefit that they've been enjoying over the past 10 or 15 years. But the rest of it, I think, is probably political and negotiations that are beyond my expertise.
And that's why we have Scott Carpenter here. So Scott, if you can.
I think I would reiterate what the other Scott just said. I think the important thing is to have a conversation with Chatham and to begin that conversation. I do think in terms of the last slide in your deck, Mark, that I'd encourage you to also think about is when there are cuts, particularly when there are cuts with schools, unlike the town where people may just say, okay, I'm going to stay in my house, when it comes to cuts to school budgets and cuts to school staff, we live in the Wild West of school choice. You end up creating unstable situations and uncertainty for your parents, and families respond by seeking stability. I think one of the things that we have benefited as two towns and as a school district is we've seen a huge change in our financial position because there's been stability for the last 13 years while I've been there at Monomoy. So we've seen families who have left stay, And we've seen more, more of our children that live in both Chatham and Harwich stay in our school systems. And I think Michael went and quantified that in one of our past presentations. That's, it's well north of $500,000 that is, that's retaining, in our school budget that isn't going out to fund, to fund losses to, losses of students to other school districts. So there is, I think my concern with us ever hitting that levy limit and potentially having a no vote is, what does that do? It's, yes, it becomes a loss of staff and resources and for the towns, but it also creates this uncertainty with families, and families will seek out certainty for their children with choice out. And then you start to see a school district that's made great gains in bringing kids back in and families back in, potentially going backwards, which then further impacts your school budgets.
And I think that's an excellent point by Dr. Carpenter, and I think that's why we started this discussion, a year and a half ago. And so all the data by Mr. Norm is incredible data, and it shows that the stark differences when it comes to funding the school system. However, the ultimate message is the potential impact to the student population, and in turn, both communities, if the budgets can't be realized within the levy limits, and the potential for creating damage to a school district that has done remarkably well over the years. So I've said it a million times, I'll say it again tonight, there's a million whys. This information is great, and it helps us, give a visual, but there's a hell of a lot more to it than just this data. And there's dozens of people in the community, if not hundreds, that have varying opinions as to the why. But this gets us a good roadmap to illustrate the stark difference between the two communities and what's going on in the funding formula. So I appreciate all that input and effort. Input from other members?
I don't really have anything, no.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Scott, excellent work. Thank you. And you and I had a nice conversation about this prior to tonight, and I appreciate everything you've done for us. I just would urge everybody to remember, this isn't just a one-year potential problem. This could be a year over year over year continual problem that I don't think any of us want to have. We all have the same goal of taking care of our students. And capital requests will continue to come. The school budget will continue to increase for non-negotiable factors and some negotiable factors. The advancement of this agenda item needs to continue to be prioritized. I really strongly feel that it is so important, and nothing's going to change without conversation with our partners. And I do view them as our partners. And I know they view us as their partners. We have something that sits in the middle, which is our students, that I believe we all cherish and want success for. Because at the end of the day, if you're pumping out quality kids from your educational system, that is a huge, huge bonus for any town, for the property values of any town, for all of us. We all win. So I would like this to continue to be put at the top of the priority list and advance it however we need to. Thank you.
No, agreed. We need to continue the dialogue. We need to advance it. And I think we all know, and the school department knows, this isn't going to be resolved for town meeting this year. However, the discussions need to begin and continue throughout, because it's going to be a process to accomplish, if we can accomplish it. It's one thing to have a conversation with the folks who lead the town of Chatham, but it's a whole nother argument to convince the taxpayers in Chatham that this is necessary. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of importance to this subject, and I hope we can continue starting in the new calendar year to bring this forward. Mark, anything else you wanted to add or to conclude?
No, that's it, thank you.
Appreciate all the effort on that. Again, to Scott online, appreciate all your effort, and to the school folks, appreciate your time this evening. So we'll see where we go in 2026. Thank you. We will jump along to the discussion pertaining to coordinating interview questions for the TA candidates. I requested we put this on the agenda so that we could each, I think Mr. White sent us all some sample questions. I believe he also included some of the questions, not the responses, but the questions that the interview committee, the screening committee asked of the candidates. But rather than showing up when we have interview day and we all have the same questions, I thought we could submit them to the TA's office and they could coordinate what we have, and so that we have a full array of questions. Typically we're looking for those 10 questions to each. And that list submitted by Mr. White does not have to be exclusive. We could go off of that. We could come up with our own questions, formulate our own ideas. But I think we want to get that into the TA's office sooner than later so that we can be prepared, I guess, at our first meeting
I didn't get the
in
list.
January to bounce any questions off one another, because I think tentatively we're scheduled for the 10th, is that correct?
We are scheduled
You
for
are
the 10th.
scheduled for the 10th, so take the tentative out of there. So we only have one meeting between now and then. So if we have any follow-up with one another, that would be the time to do it. Any
don't remember.
comments, questions, concerns?
Yeah, I don't remember receiving an email from, was it in an email?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you've got it, maybe you can forward it to me.
I will, and Tony, do you know, was that forwarded by you, or did that come, no, it came directly from Mr.
Yeah, it
White.
was sent on
Yeah.
December 9th.
Yeah, but I'll
You're-
forward.
Yeah,
You're listed on there.
Yeah,
Really?
forward again.
Maybe check your spam or something.
yeah, I never check the spam.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it had questions,
Alright.
his recommended questions, as well as the questions that the screening committee asked of the candidates, so,
Okay.
go.
Yep. So maybe just, prep the flow between now and the 10th. So we're already in the process of building the board's packets for the 10th, which will have, the flow for the day, sort of the round-robin thing at the beginning, the scheduled times for that, times for the formal interviews, the order in which the candidates will present to the board. We'll have the interview questions once we have those from everybody and the board agrees on the questions. So we'll have those packets ready for each of you on the 10th, as well as each candidate's resume, cover letter, et cetera, that was provided. So we'll have all that information, ready to go for the 10th.
So you're looking for 2 questions from each
Well,
board member, is that, or as many
No,
as we
yeah, you
wanna
can fire,
submit?
yeah, you can fire however many you want, and again, they'll probably see some duplicates, but at that point, at least we know
Titrate
we've
it.
covered all the bases,
Perfect.
And Tony, just touching on the schedule for that day, I think I'd mentioned it to Chair Howell. Perhaps the actual interview time slots are not quantified on the agenda. So in other words, it can be a beginning time frame, but and whether it's proper Robert rules or whatever, I'm not the person to tell you, but when we did when the select board interviewed finance director candidates, we had slotted an hour for each candidate. Well, some of them wrapped up in 30 minutes, and so we waited an additional 30 minutes for the next time slot. All the individuals, all the players are gonna be here. To me, you have a start time for the first candidate, you can put them in order of who's first, who's second, and third.
Okay.
But why box us into a time frame?
Okay.
Just my thoughts on that. Anything else you wanted to add before we,
No.
good? Anything, Mark? Good. All right, move on to item G.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to take G through H if the chair doesn't object. I move we vote to approve a new common victualer's license. Victualler, yeah.
Actually, can we,
Vittler. Get it one of these times.
Can we do G separate, please?
Yeah, I'll do G separate. I move we vote to approve a new common victular license application for Twisted Turk Pizza and more, doing business as Twisted Pizza, 181 Route 137.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? My discussion, Tony, I read this as a new common victular license. They've been in business, they've been operating. I assume this is a renewal.
I don't know, but let me find out.
Does that say renewal? Is that them? Is what you?
No,
that's not
this
them.
is, no. This is just
Gotcha.
from Jen.
So,
Yeah, it says new on here, but I'm actually texting Jen because she
Okay.
says it is new.
all right, so can we pull that one back for right now and move on to
Sure.
H?
It says new owners.
This, is this what
It's a
we're?
new owner.
New
A
owner
business was in,
right now?
this is a new owner that is listed on here. So I guess Twisted Pizza must have been around, somebody must have bought it and they're putting in a
So it
new,
opened as Twisted Pizza and then it had since sold and it's
new
staying the
owner, same name.
Okay, in which case,
So is this
No
the
problem.
thing we're signing?
That's separate, but
This
it
is
still needs
separate.
to be signed by everybody.
all right, so we have a motion and a second to grant the victular license to Twisted Pizza. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the following 2026 common victual license renewals. Number one, Shogun Incorporated, doing business as Noble House, 21 Route 28. Number two, Round Cove Resort owner, LLC, DBA Wequasit Resort and Golf Club, 2173 Route 28. Number three, CDVT Corporation, DBA Heart of the Sea, 1421 Orleans Road. Number four, C Street Suites LLC, DBA C Street Suites, Mocha Nut, 537 Route 28.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move we approve the following 2026 in-holder license renewal. Round Cove Resort owner, LLC, DBA Wequasit Resort and Golf Club, 2173 Route 28.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye. Mr.
Opposed?
Chair. Oops, sorry.
Unanimous? It's okay.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the following 2026 auto class license renewals. A&G Accident Repair, DBA Cranberry Collision, 161 Queen Anne Road, Auto Class 2 and Auto Class 4. And number two, VTech Auto Center, LLC, 805 Route 28, Auto Class 4.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the following 2026 entertainment license renewals. Round Cove Resort owner, LLC, DBA Wequasit Resort and Golf Club, 2173 Route 28. Weekday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. outside and 10 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. inside. Jukebox, radio, television, dancing by patrons, dancing by live performers, live recorded music, jazz trio, soloists, instrumentals, bands, dance groups, actors, amplification, moving pictures, plays, floor shows, light shows, and theater shows. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. inside and outside, jukebox, radio, television, dancing by patrons, dancing by live performers, live recorded music, jazz, trios, soloists, instrumentals, bands, dance groups, actors, amplification, moving pictures, plays, floor shows, light shows, and theater shows. Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? The only thing I'll state, since I've been historically opposed to the 10 p.m., clearly this is a resort. These folks conduct all sorts of, I'll call them engagements, whether it's wedding venues or whatever, and clearly the 10 p.m. timeframe for the resort is reasonable. So with that said, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the following 2026 annual off-premises liquor license renewal. Malik Corporation, DBA Value Mart, 435 Route 28.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. I don't see anything on old business contracts.
Let's see, so the contract for this evening is the contract for the, I guess, the Hope and Go, we call it. One thing I just want to draw the board's attention to, and I think credit to our relationship with Mass DOT, when we got the bids in, they were higher than the amount we had available, and so I submitted a letter to them last week, asking for them to up our authorization in order to be able to continue on with the project, and they pretty much got it back before the ink was dry, and provided the appropriate amount of increase to bring our total authorized amount to spend in Chapter 90 to $390,995. And the board approves the contract, we should get ready to get that construction started.
Have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a contract with Richard F. D'Ambrosia, Inc., in the amount of $326,295,000.60 for the Route 39 and Chatham Road intersection project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Clearly, this has been a long-standing issue, so it's nice to see the movement on it. Any other discussion?
Just one thing, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Link called up 13 towns or entities that had used this company. He did a lot of due diligence and received nothing but good reviews, so I just think Link did a great job checking into the background of this contractor, so.
Thank you for that. Mr. Hanlon?
Well, I just wanted to thank Traffic Safety. This is a perfect example of how the public and the committees, and then the select board, and then staff can all work together to get something accomplished. I know it took a little while, but here we are.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Town Administrator's report.
Nothing to add this evening.
Beautiful, nice job. Select Board Member report. Anita?
Don't have anything.
Mark?
Just one thing, we had a presentation last week by the Witchmere Resort. I didn't hear anything spoken about a public restaurant, so I did confirm, I spoke to Mr. Cullen. There is going to be an approximate 80-seat restaurant. It's primarily going to be used by hotel guests, but it will be a resource for the town in the off-season. So that's it.
Mr. Hanlon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that, Mark. It segues nicely. I had, Witchmere Beach Club had requested a discussion on the potential support from this select board. I would like to see that on the agenda, at least to have the conversation, so we can either choose to support the project, choose to be neutral, or choose to not support the project. I think we can do that for them. And then, I don't know if there's an update, Mr. Town Administrator, on the Walder Road stairs. It's been a little while, and I don't know if it's been just put on hold, or if engineering is working. I can't remember where we left.
No, the bids came in 3 times higher than the amount of money we had, so when we had that discussion early on in my tenure, it was essentially, it was kind of dead in the water.
Leave it where it is. Okay.
Yeah, I have a meeting that I need to set up, because the folks that donated the $10,000 for that project, I'm going to just have a meeting with them to talk to them about, you know, what the road ahead might look like, could look like, or whatever, and obviously, if the determination is not to move forward, obviously, we can return the funds. We haven't spent any of the money, so I think ultimately it's, you know, a question of fighting Mother Nature and, you know, the cost of the overall project, but right now, we didn't have the funds available or a route to be able to move it forward, so actually, nothing's happening at this point.
Understood.
And I think we left it, that we would see if any additional funds came in to support the project, and if not, make a decision if we wanted to move forward with any type of article. And I think there were varying opinions on that. So at this point, we can wait till Mr. Schiavi has his conversation, see if there's any movement, and then move forward after that. And as far as the Witchmere support, if you want to talk to the chair about putting that on a future agenda, so we can decide if we want to offer a support for that project or not.
Yep, it's on the agenda tracker. I talked to the chair about it the other day. I think I'm gonna make a presentation at the January 5th meeting, so the rest of the board can see the tracker.
Okay.
And all the different items that we are tracking and trying to work to sequence those topics in. So as these come up and board members bring things up, I add them to that tracker for, future agendas, just trying to sequence everything, in at the appropriate times for, decisional, purposes and what's, sort of the closest alligator to us that we need to decide on. So that's on there.
Thank you. And two things, if I could add to both of those. My interest in asking about the Waller Road stairs is if nothing's going to be done, to your point, we should contact the person who gave the $10,000 donation.
Yeah, they reached out to me just to
Okay,
get an update, and I kind of
great.
gave them the down and dirty on that, so I'm going to set up a meeting with them after the first of the year, so.
Great. And then with respect to the Witchmere Beach Club, I know that they're on a bit of a timeline, and a yes or a no from this board would probably help them stay on their timeline. So, thank you.
Excellent. All right.
No, you don't have anything.
No.
Nah,
Not
motion to
tonight.
adjourn, Mr. Chair?
Motion and a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's unanimous.
Wait, Mary